Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. I'm joined in studio today by writer, director, producer Robert Meyer Burnett.
Wow, John, it's another week, another day, another dollar, and what a terrible football game.
Oh, it was an awesome football game. I delighted in every moment of it.
I at least want to see a good game.
I know, but for me, it was a good game.
You called it. You were the prophet on this one.
Also, Jonathan Voico is here.
I instead went and saw Becoming Led Zeppelin in IMAX. It was amazing.
Oh yeah, the documentary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, one of the stars of the new True Noir series that is out, Chris Carr.
Hello, I won the Super Bowl. I drank so much whiskey and ate so many chicken tendies. I had the best time.
Then you actually did win the Super Bowl.
I had a
You
great
did.
one. Oh,
Guys, most importantly, though, of course, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here, making our little show part of your day. And here's how our show's going to go. We're going to start off by talking about, we're kind of packed today, a number of topics that we got pre-selected for you guys. Then in the second part of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. If you have a thought, theory, opinion, or question or topic you'd like us to address, as long as we deem it appropriate to be addressed on the show, go ahead and fire it on into our tip link at www.streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. And here's the good news about this tip link. It's actually good 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you're listening to our show later in the day on podcast feeds, whether it's on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or maybe you're watching this show a little bit later in the day, you can still send in a question. If you send it in when we're not live, we'll just get around to answering it on the next episode. All right. Before we get into it, I got to take a second to call attention to something because you knew I had to do this. At least 3 times last week, people wrote in and asked, hey, John, who's going to win the Super Bowl? And 3 times on this show, I said, Eagles, and it's not going to be close. I said, this is a bad matchup for the Chiefs. It's about matchups, and this is a bad matchup for Steve. I said, the defensive line of Philadelphia is too big, too fast, too strong. They're going to dominate the offensive line of Kansas City. I said the same thing on the other side of the ball as well. And I said, by the time we get a few minutes into the fourth quarter, I said, this game will already be over. And people said I was crazy. I mean, some people said, yeah, the Eagles will win, but it'll be close. It's Patrick Mahomes. It'll come right down to the wire. I said, no, it's going to be Eagles. They're going to dominate. The game's going to be over before you even get halfway into the fourth quarter. And I watched that game with great glee and was very happy, even though I didn't have a single drop of alcohol. I was almost on Chris Carr level highs. I
feel like that's doubtful.
Is that not questionable? Okay, that's questionable.
I just want to point out 50 John Campea memberships from Roberto just now.
What?
Wow.
Who put that in?
Damn, Roberto.
Wow, Roberto. I wonder if Roberto's an Eagles fan.
And he did. Yeah, maybe he won on PrizePicks last night.
That's a nice sponsor call out.
He did 20 earlier, so 70 altogether.
Oh my God. Thank you, Roberto. That's incredibly generous of you, dude. Thank you very much. And with that positive note, let's get things going here, shall we? And we're going to start off with this. You know, Daredevil Born Again is getting closer, and we're all pretty excited about it. Now, one little thing came out the other week, and we did talk about it on the show, where the showrunner was talking about it and said, you know, we're going to be more hardcore. It's going to be darker than the next Netflix series was. And we're not going to waste a lot of time with people talking. You know, I don't want to watch superheroes talk. I want to see them doing stuff. And that to me was a pretty big red flag, because that to me kind of told me that the new showrunner maybe didn't understand what made the Netflix Daredevil series so great. Because we went around this room, we talked about what's your favorite moment ever? And I said the talk between Punisher and Daredevil on that rooftop, just when they're talking up there. And Rob, you pointed out another big dramatic scene. And Chris, you pointed out a big dramatic scene where it's just talking, stuff like that. And it's like the action without narrative purpose is just visual noise, right? I've said that all the time. And it made me a little bit worried, not super worried, but a little concerned that maybe this new showrunner, who also worked on Punisher, maybe didn't understand what made Netflix so good. Well, now he's doubling down on it, talking about how violent this show's going to be now, saying it blows away anything that Netflix did. This comes to us from Empire, who wrote the following. The level of violence is way up there for a Marvel Disney show, he says. He's talking about the showrunner of the new Daredevil Born Again. I don't think there's anything else even in the ballpark. There's a moment in this that is just absolutely batshit and way past anything Netflix ever did. That's almost hard to imagine, given that the previous Daredevil show had Fisk slamming heads in car doors with minions who'd sooner impale their heads on spikes than name their omniscient boss. But Kingpin himself agrees that Born Again is both deeper and darker. There's a world in which you might think that if that show kept running, we'd be in a place eventually, or something like that, says D'Onofrio. But we've gone further in the darkness, the action, the nastiness. Now, I'm eating these comments up. Again, the comments that concern me were about him saying, we don't want to see superheroes talking. Yeah, we do. We want to see good filmmaking in this show. We do want to see, but that aside, these are big words, Rob, to come out and say that the violence we have in this show blows away, goes far past anything Netflix did. That doesn't sound quite realistic. If they do, I mean, that's going to be something special if they're able to do that. But I can't see that being a reality. I don't know. What did you make of his words?
Here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
Oh, it's a story.
It's not like we're talking slasher. It's not like a gore fest. I mean, like, you think about the hallway battle. One of the great fights ever done for television.
So cool.
So cool. Now, I don't know how, unless Daredevil's going to start using knives or blades and slicing people up, I don't know how. Does that mean we're going to up the sound of the crunches when people's noses are broken? Like, what does that mean? And I mean, maybe that means that there's more, John, ninjas.
Oh,
More ninjas.
More ninjas
More
is always
blood.
good.
I mean, but that show. Look, I think what we want is great fight choreography and hard hitting, bone crunching conflict.
but it's got to be fed by the drama, though, right?
Yeah.
That's what gives
Absolutely.
meaning to the violence.
That's right.
Right.
You don't want something. You don't want it just violence for its own sake. The thing
Right.
about Daredevil, what was really interesting about the Netflix show, is even though it had violent battles, it was all earned.
Yeah.
It never felt, it was hardcore, but it never felt gratuitous. This kind of sounds like, we made him gratuitously more violent. But I mean, I know if someone's never worked on that kind of things and it makes me excited to see what kind of fights they've staged.
Chris, what do you make of his comments?
Oh man, at first when it was just him, before I read the D'Onofrio stuff, I felt like channeling Hamilton of, I just need you to talk less. I need you to stop talking about how great your show is and just let me see it. Because you're setting me up to have really crazy expectations. So just let me enjoy it. D'Onofrio chiming in makes me feel a little better. But the violence that we're going to get here, the heckin' violence. Muse has one of the most horrific panels for me in comic book history.
Oh, yes, he does.
All of you know how much I hate eye stuff.
Yep.
He goes up to Blind Spot, Daredevil's new sidekick, and gouges him in the eyes. And it is so bloody and so horrible.
And it's stunning. I remember the first time I read, I'm like, whoa.
I threw my comic. I was just like, what just happened? You can do stuff like that? It's, oh God, yeah, there it is. I hate it so much.
That is an amazing panel, though.
But don't worry,
Yeah.
he's okay, which is insane.
Sort of.
He's fine.
It's merely a flesh wound.
So stuff like that, I think, is what we're going to get of Muse being particularly violent and horrific. Now, to your point about slashers, though, I don't want this to end up like, you know how Criminal Minds ended up being kind of torture porny at times? It's one of the reasons why Mandy Patinkin left the show. I don't want to get into that territory where we're doing gratuitous violence for the sake of it. I understand doing something horrific to showcase how awful somebody is, but I also would like to leave some of it to the human imagination, which is so much worse.
Totally agree. But also, that doesn't really fit Daredevil. I mean, the violence still has to fit the character.
Yeah.
And the character, I mean, bone-crunching fights. I mean, that's the whole thing. He's that street-level hero. If they suddenly make, somebody's head gets smashed into a wall and his head really gets flattened out.
Well, I
and
mean,
someone's
like,
hand
but
goes-
if to Chris's point though, if it's Muse doing something like that,
Right.
or if it's Kingpin doing something like
Yes.
that. Those would
Yeah.
fit. Those would fit in well.
Yeah,
I
but
just
if we
hope
see
they earn
Matt-
it. Like you said, they earn those moments to give them impact.
Yeah, I mean, I hate when I hope Marvel doesn't take Daredevil in a direction where they feel like they have to get edgy. You know, you want it to stay, because the Netflix tone. I mean, they rewrote the whole show. They reconceptualized it, and as we said, just the scene of them sitting, Kingpin talking to Matt Murdock in the diner or whatever. That was something we want to see. It doesn't necessarily mean we want more violence.
Right.
We want character and we want story.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about these new statements? Our violence blows away anything Netflix does. Are they taking shots at Netflix here? I don't know. Where's your anticipation level right now for Daredevil? It's still pretty high for me, I got to tell you. Anyway, whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, one of the films coming out in March that has a lot of people talking, some for the good reasons and some for the not good reasons, is Snow White. It's coming out. Now, the trailer, let's just call it what it is. The trailer has had very divided opinions on it. I'll be honest with you. I really like the trailer. I'm not saying the movie's going to be great. I'm definitely not saying that. But I like the trailer. It felt kind of like a very, what's the word? It felt very fairy tale-ish. It felt very much kind of in that zone. My one concern about it is I felt a little bit of Snow White and the Huntsman kind of vibes in it, which is not necessarily a good thing. But how would it do, and are people going to go out to see it? Well, we've got our first tracking numbers for it. And they're actually not bad. This comes us from Deadline, where they write the following. Disney's long-awaited live-action reboot of its 1937 animated classic Snow White doesn't open until March 21st. However, box office forecasts are out on the Rachel Zegler, Gal Gadot starring movie. Quorum now reports a 3-day start for the Mark Webb. By the way, I totally forgot that Mark Webb directed this. I really like Mark Webb, as a matter of fact. Anyway, directed the movie of 63 to 70 million, while other sources believe 65. So right in that range, 65 to $70 million range. At this point, time is fair. As a comp, the 2014 Angelina Jolie Sleeping Beauty live-action spinoff opened to 69.4 million back in the early summer of 2014. At that level, it would rep the highest-grossing domestic opening for the Golden Globe-winning Ziegler, whose Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes ranks as the actress's best opening box office with $44.6 million. All right. So at this point, Quorum is saying they're looking at $65 to $70 million opening weekend. Is that good or bad? Well, let's compare it to some of the more recent films that have opened up. All right. So if you look at something like, you can take me down there, Jonathan. If you look at something like Moana, I mean, Moana, $1 billion film, had a $139 million opening. Wicked had a $112 million opening. Red One had a $32 million opening, went on to make 185. But then a couple of bigger films. Sonic the Hedgehog, it would be a bigger opening than Sonic the Hedgehog that opened at 60 million, and Sonic the Hedgehog went on to make over $470 million. More interesting is Mufasa, which did open on the same weekend as Sonic.
Yes,
it
did, right.
Yeah.
Mufasa, which opened on the same weekend as Sonic the Hedgehog, only had a $35 million opening weekend, but has gone on to make over $670 million at the worldwide box office. So you're talking about a $65 to $70 million opening fits in pretty well on this list, clearly behind the big pop culture names like Moana, Wicked, but ahead of things like Sonic, ahead of things like Mufasa. Then it all becomes about how good or bad the movie is, right? That's all about that. Like, yeah, Mufasa opened almost half of what Sonic opened to. And I didn't even like Mufasa that much, but it had legs, man. It's after 8 weeks, it's still in the top 4.
Yeah.
It's still in the top 4 after 8 weeks and has made more money than it's blown Sonic out of the water, actually. So can it do that? Can it not? It's all going to be about how good or bad the movie is. But for me, if I were to be asked the question, do I think a $65 to $70 million opening is a good thing for Snow White? I'd have to say, considering that's higher than I thought it would be, if it ends up being 65 to 70, I think they have to be happy with that start and see where things go from there. Chris, you hear these numbers, good, bad, and how do you think it'll actually shake out?
First of all, Sonic was so much better. There's no justice in this world. I just needed to say that really quickly. I feel like this is a really good number for this movie. I personally am not particularly excited about this. I did not like that trailer.
A lot of people didn't.
I think the CGI dwarves are nightmare fuel.
I love them. I think they look good.
You know, things are so subjective, right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
They look so much like the movie version of stuff, so I can totally see why other people would like it. For me, that was no, thank you.
Right.
And on top of that, there are other people too who just don't like Rachel Zegler's stance on the Snow White character in general. So there's been a whole bunch of different issues, at least within the movie theater community, right? The movie going community. For our average going audience, though, it's going to be families who are like, oh, hey, Snow White movie. I'll take the kids to see that. They're not engulfed in all of the controversy that's been around this film, right? Like all of us are who do this show. So I feel like it'll do well enough, but these movies have such a bad track record. I mean, there was Cinderella, and then everything else has been pretty mid. So I don't feel like these live actions are going to do particularly well unless we all go to the theater and have our minds blown. And maybe that'll happen. Maybe I go see this movie, and then word of mouth will pick up, and this will really like have some legs. But I don't see this really blowing off the box office doors. I think this is a very respectable opening number that they should be proud of, given the everything about this marketing.
But some of their live action stuff has done very well.
Financially, yeah.
I mean, yeah. So like
Yeah.
you look at something like Beauty and the Beast, which by the way, I didn't think Beauty and the Beast was bad. I just didn't think it was particularly great.
It's just not good.
It made over $1 billion.
Yeah, it's a movie.
They've had others make over $1 billion. I mean, even Little Mermaid, when it had a kind of a struggling opening weekend, and everybody then said initially that movie's going to, they proclaimed it a flop. It came close to $500 million when it was all said and done.
I suppose then I should also
over.
rephrase too. I don't think it's going to do well here.
Okay. So you're not talking about worldwide overall.
Yeah,
You mean
my mistake.
domestically.
Sorry, y'all. I should have been specific.
What are you going to say, Jonathan?
It actually made
69 dudes.
Yeah,
Oh, so that's like 100 million more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rob, you hear these numbers. Are you surprised by the numbers? Did you think they'd be higher or lower? Do you think it'll come in this high? And if it does come in here, is it something they should be happy with?
Well, here's the thing. You know, in our little film, Twitter, film, YouTube ecosystem, it has no bearing on the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The real world, you have parents that want to take their kids to go see entertaining, family-friendly films. And I think Disney's live action material has pretty much delivered the goods. I mean, getting Kenneth Branagh to direct Cinderella was a stroke. Here's what I don't understand about this film. You know how we saw there was early photographs of actors in various, they look like a Renaissance fair group of dwarves.
Oh, yeah.
What I don't understand about this movie, which is going to be perplexing to me forever, Peter Jackson proved in the first Hobbit film how delightful great actors playing dwarves can be. The scene in Bilbo's house, you know, when they're there and they clean up you had all these great actors. And I was really looking forward because I worked on the first Snow White release on DVD. I love Snow White. It's the first Disney feature film, one of the first animated features of all time. And I really thought that they were going to do what Peter Jackson did with The Hobbit, which get all these great actors.
And just do like the forced perspective camera
and all that. Because why wouldn't you? Now, what we've wound up with, and this is just my own bias, but it's a weird hybrid of the animated dwarves with everything else is live action. And I have a hard time when I've seen the trailers. It's incongruous to me. Like I can't, like I've loved all the live action Disney. You and I love Cinderella.
Oh, I loved Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella was great.
When Helena Bonham Carter shows up, you know, as not the evil stepmother, but you know, the woman that's going to give her I love
Fairy Godmother.
Fairy Godmother.
Yeah.
Helena Bonham Carter. I loved her playing the Fairy Godmother. And one of the joys of these Disney live action movies is seeing who they get to play these parts. You know, and Gal Gadot's. I mean, that doesn't work for me either. You're the fairest one of all. Like, why are you asking yourself in a mirror? You're beautiful. You're Wonder Woman. But that's okay. I still want this movie to be great. I do. And do I think it's going to make a lot of money? I do. The same way.
Really? You think it's going to make a lot?
I think it's going to make. Look, if the movie delivers the goods,
right?
If you're a 9-year-old girl, and you go with your mom, and you sit in the movie and you're munching on your popcorn, and there's a few good songs, and you have a good time. Forget all the politics and all that. Is it entertaining? And I think that, well, with all the delays and how long they've worked on this movie, I would hope it's entertaining because I don't want to see this movie be bad.
Yeah,
I want it to be good.
Here's the funny thing, because I'm almost the polar opposite of you in the sense that, I mean, of course, I want it to be great. I do. I think my favorite part of the trailer was actually the CG dwarves, because like I looked at that and I felt, because the rest of it, again, to me, had the vibes of Snow White and the Huntsman.
Yeah, because they've changed the story.
A little bit. Right. Which, hey, you know, Kenneth Branagh did too, and all that kind of stuff. And you give them
But he's
license to
Kenneth
do
Branagh.
that. But I mean, I think that's the part that delighted me the most, because I loved seeing the dwarves the way I grew up with them, then kind of manifested on screen that way. And it worked for me. Again, am I still going to think it works when I watch the movie? Maybe or maybe not. I mean, that I have no idea if the movie's going to be good, but
I think you're right, though.
see.
It does have Snow White and the Huntsman vibes.
Yeah.
Because they flipped the story. It's no longer the fairy tale that the original was.
I mean, much closer than Snow White and the Huntsman was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I feel like these dwarves kind of give me some Shrek vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't disagree, but to
But I
me,
don't-
that's not a bad thing.
But I'm not, yeah, and it depends on the context. So I'm on the fence because if it works in context, I'll be like, well, then that's cool. But otherwise, it's like, oh, that's creepy.
It just feels a little too Roger Rabbity to me right now. They feel so
Where they're
animated.
the only thing that's CG and everything else is
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
We'll have to see, yeah.
By the way, I've never been this excited to see Gal Gadot in a role. Because, you know, I historically am not the biggest fan of Gal Gadot. I have always thought she's got a lot of potential, a lot of promise. I've never thought she's been the strongest actress. Just being, you know, coming clean about that. But when I saw her in the trailers for this and in some of the preview stuff, I'm like, I think she's found the role that might be the opportunity to be a transitional point for her to really sink her teeth into something that's going to really be strong for her. And I think she could be a great Wicked stepmother. I don't know. We'll see. Whether or not the movie's going to be good, I think it's a coin toss. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? The reports are saying this movie's going to open to 65 to 70 million, which not on Moana or Wicked levels would put it higher of an opening than Sonic or Mufasa. And those movies ended up doing pretty well. Are you surprised by those numbers? Do you think it'll open higher, maybe lower? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. That down. Let's move on to this, shall we? It's Oscar season, and it's been an interesting one. There are a lot of years that come and you're like, you clearly know who the frontrunner is, or at the very minimum, who the top two are. This year, been a little bit different. Between movies like, I was going to say Emilia Perez?
Amelia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a good movie. I don't know why it's nominated for Best Picture. But that's been considered front for something like Conclave, which I think is an absolute masterpiece of a film. Anora, Complete Unknown. I mean, The Brutalist. At different points in time over the last couple of months, there's been this race going up and down. But we might now have a clear look at who the clear front runner is. And it's Anora. IndieWire is pointing out here that over the past, just this weekend, Anora won the Critics' Choice Award, the PGA, and the DGA. And those events all took place within about 24 hours of each other. It was just boom, boom, boom. Anora, Anora, Anora. They wrote the following. The refrain sung by Take That opens Anora. Today, this could be the greatest day of our lives. Sounds like a manifestation of the Palme d'Or award winners campaign over the last 24 hours. On Saturday night, 2 Guild Award wins, Best Picture at the PGA and Best Director at the DGA, followed by a surprise Best Film win at Friday's 2025 Critics' Choice Award. Listen, this is one of those years that, to me, there are a number of films that could win Best Picture that I would have no problem. Dune 2 should win Best Picture, but it's not. Okay, I've just accepted that. That's fine. Conclave, I think, is a masterpiece of a film. I would love it to win. Brutalist, well, I think it slows down a bit in the second half. It's an incredible piece of art. I mean, it's a great, great film. But Anora hit me in a way that was both, I laughed a lot, I kind of related in some ways, And then the interwoven social commentary within it on life, the human existence, the human experience, all that kind of stuff, I thought was deep and profound. You know, while this stripper is banging a guy, they're actually making these insanely deep observations about social status and things like that. It's a brilliant movie. And I'll tell you what, they call Conclave when they announce Best Picture, I see Conclave. Or if I'll be perfectly good with that. They say The Brutalist, perfectly good with that. They say Emilia Perez, won't be so good with that. But if they say Anora, and it is starting to look like the winds are shifting that way, I'm going to be very happy for this film because it has the gritty feel of a small indie film. It's just packed with great heart and great characters. Rob, you always talk about how it starts with characters. It's got great heart and great characters. I loved this movie, and if it does swing for Anora, and you know what, I'm with him. I think we can now call it. I think Anora's going to win this award anyway. Rob, you see this insane win streak Anora went on this weekend. Do you now see it as the Oscar frontrunner, or do you think another film could still do it?
Well, I'll tell you, when I first saw this, I was saying this is the best movie of the year. It's my favorite movie I've seen, you know. And while all these other movies there's a lot of great stuff. I thought this movie was great. I'm a huge Sean Baker fan. It did win the Palme d'Or in Cannes. And then it started, you know, I was thinking more along the lines of other people didn't embrace it the way I thought people would.
It started to get overshadowed a bit after Palme.
But also politically, you know, the subject matter is not exactly Amadeus or Gandhi or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But I thought it's a wildly entertaining movie that, like you, it asks a lot of really tough questions, mixed with a wildly entertaining film that has at its core an amazing performance. She's amazing. And to see these wins over the weekend, I'm like, wow, this really might win. And I think, look, as far as an entertaining film goes, it's these kinds of movies that we all want to see. The movie is so much fun to watch. And yet you feel there's a lot of compelling issues and questions it's asking you. And at the end of the day, it's really the story about a woman who's empowered, doing exactly what she wants, living the way she wants, and being the way she wants, and society be damned. And
the consequences that come from that worldview, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's a great film. I'd love to see it win. And Sean Baker's a great filmmaker.
And by the way, this sounds weird to say, but it's true. As an adult man, I've been to a strip club honestly not that often. Honestly, not that often, but I've been to a few strip clubs with some bachelor parties, stuff like that. It may sound weird to say, but as you can point out, I've never seen a movie more accurately portray what the inside of a strip club is like. Like I can't recall ever seeing a movie where it's like, actually, that's not what it actually felt like. And that's kind of what it feels like in a strip club.
It's not Showgirls.
No, it is not Showgirls. Anyway, Chris, you know, you saw this. This is, that's that's as good of a weekend as the Eagles had. That's a pretty damn good weekend for Anora. And this film that to me started to look like it was starting to get overshadowed by a lot of other films comes like sprinting out of the pack here. Would you put them as a front runner now? Do you still think another film has the edge? How do you see this weekend for them?
I would put them up there. They're the little engine that could. This is such a great film. That Tails point too. I think a lot of people did have this hesitation of, well, I don't think my favorite movie is going to be this one about a sex worker marrying an oligarch. I don't think that's going to be... That's not what I'm going to vibe with. And yet, here we are, because this movie is beautiful. And Mikey Madison is incredible. She's
so good
astounding.
in this.
And listening to her roundtable talks, too, about just how she kept having breakdowns about this movie of, I have to learn Russian. I have to learn Russian in 2 months. It's never going to happen. And she would sleep listening to Russian for 9 hours. And then she would immediately in the day go and work with her Russian tutors and everything, on top of having to bring this incredible acting performance. She's just the heart and soul of this. She's so wonderful. I really think this has a shot. I do think something of a bigger scale might win just because of, I don't know, the politics of the Oscars. But Anora is lovely, and I think that'd be beautiful.
PGA, DGA, these are some big power players in the Academy. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think at this point, though, if it's not them, I have a feeling it's also not going to be my second pick, which is Conclave. I think it might end up being Brutalist. I
could be.
think Brutalist is the one
Yeah.
that still might eke this one out.
Could be.
It's a pretty astonishing achievement.
It is
It
an
is,
astonishing
yeah.
film. It's an
And
astonishing
for the
film.
budget, man.
Oh, God, I tell you what, like, every year we get to the end of the year and we always start to think around November, was this that good of a year for movies? And then you start seeing the Oscar list and you're thinking, damn, there was a lot of good movies this year.
Yeah, well, you guys brought up something really interesting. The Brutalist and Anora are great examples of terrific films. I mean, The Brutalist is epic in terms of its scale and length. Didn't cost very much.
Nope, they kept it very reasonably budgeted and,
Maybe Hollywood needs Doge.
oh, God.
Come on in and examine those books.
Well, I mean, listen, Anora was very small budgeted, right?
Really small.
I mean, anyway.
But Sean Baker specialized in that.
Yep. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? It's been an incredible weekend for Anora. Do you think that gives them the edge heading into the Oscars? I kind of think it does, but there's an argument to be made for a lot of the other films as well. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. Listen, there's still a few other things we need to talk about, including the big animation award of the year, the Annie Awards. Wild Robot took it. We're going to talk about that. Also, we're going to run down our thoughts on the various Super Bowl trailer spots that we got given to us this weekend. And I'm sorry. Eagles, all the flowers to you. To me, the Thunderbolts trailer won the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about these things and a few things more. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second and thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at PrizePicks. Guys, we want to thank a sponsor of today's episode, PrizePicks. All right, sports fans, All-Star Weekend is almost here, and if you're not on PrizePicks, you're seriously missing out. It's the easiest and most fun way to turn your basketball knowledge into real money. With over 10 million users already playing, why not you? PrizePicks is a skill-based daily fantasy game. You just pick more or less on player projections. You think Steph Curry's hitting more than 5 threes, or Giannis dropping more than 35 points? Make your picks in under 60 seconds, and if you hit, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Ann and I have been using PrizePicks on football all year, but now we're switching over to basketball. And we like Jason Tatum getting more than 29 points. And now that Luka Doncic is on the Lakers, I'm going to take over on 8 assists. And the best part is, even if you miss one pick, PrizePicks Flex Play lets you still cash out. And hey, don't forget about Taco Tuesday. Each week, PrizePicks discounts select player projections by up to 25%, giving you even more chances to score big. Download the app today and use the code CAMPEA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use that code CAMPEA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. And thank you to our friends at PrizePicks for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys. That down, let's talk about this, shall we? The Annie Awards were held this weekend, and that's the one. I mean, obviously you want to win the Oscar, but the one that a lot of people in animation want to win is the Annie Award. And the best picture, according to Hollywood Reporter, The Wild Robot sweeps its categories with 9 wins, including best feature in the TV media categories. Arcane won all 7 awards for which it was nominated. They wrote the following. They said this: The Wild Robot swept its categories at the 2025 Annie Awards, winning a leading 9 awards, including Best Feature. The DreamWorks animation title was nominated 10 times, but 2 of those nods were in the same category. Also Saturday night, Wild Robot won the Producers Guild Award for Outstanding Producer of an Animated Theatrical Motion Picture, and Friday night it won for Best Animated Feature at the Critics' Choice Awards. Other features that won multiple awards from the International Animated Film Society, which represents the prizes recognizing the year's best in animation, including 2-time winner Flo and Orion and the Dark, with the former winning Best Feature, Independent, and Best Writing Feature. So we were just talking about how Anora, just right here at the end, had this rush of momentum coming from the critics, PGA, whatever. The same can now be said of The Wild Robot, winning Critics' Choice, PGA in terms of animation, and now the big awards at the Annies. You know, there's been a lot of question because, like, to me, you know, Chris, there's no question to me that I thought definitively Wild Robot was the best animated film of the year. All due respect to Flow, all due respect to Inside Out 2, which I loved. Wild Robot is just special filmmaking.
Yeah.
Like just wonderful, wonderful filmmaking. Forget animated movie. It's a great movie.
Oh, absolutely.
But it really did look like early in the award season that maybe Flow was going to be the movie that captured everybody's voice. It seems now as we're getting closer, more of that momentum, more of that attention seems to be getting given over to Wild Robot. Do you think it's enough at this point that Wild Robot can win the Oscar for Best Animated, or do you think it's still Flow's award to win?
I think that it's going to go to Wild Robot personally. I just feel like there's a lot more momentum. A lot of people know about that more. Flow is something that I keep talking to people about, and they go, what is that? What is that movie?
Yeah.
I feel like so many people haven't seen it, which is a shame because it's a delight.
Yeah.
And it's really great. All these animated films this year were so good and heartbreaking at moments and just beautifully, beautifully done. But this, in the kind of the same way we had with the Spider-Verse movies, this one just felt like every single frame was a painting.
Yeah.
Everything just felt so beautiful. And it's such a great film that even if this wasn't animated, that script just stands on its own, right? You could have this as a live action film, a la like Homeward Bound style with a robot and then just dogs that we just don't see their mouths moving kind of thing. and it would still be just as great of a story. So I really feel like they're going to take it. It's so well made. It's so great. Chris Sanders crushed it.
Rob, I don't think we had a chance to talk about Wild Robot. What do you think about it sweeping up the Emmys like this?
First of all, I love the Wild Robot. I love this film. You know, it reminded me, I mean, just because it's got a robot in it, but like when I saw The Iron Giant for the first time,
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
you know,
yeah,
and the Iron Giant was such a great movie, and I never thought I mean, the people that love Iron Giant, but Wild Robot had a pretty big audience. A lot of people went and saw it, and I think that it is a wonderful movie. It's so transportive, and it does things that only, like Chris pointed out, every frame of this film felt like a painting, and it really takes the art of what animation can be. You could make a live action version of this, but I don't think it would work nearly as well. And there's something about this movie that really encompasses why animation can still is so vibrant and can, especially on a feature level, why animation is so important. And I loved it. And I have not seen Flow, and it's about a cat, right?
Well, it's about a bunch of animals, but the
Yeah,
cat's
the
the
cat's the
main.
animal.
Yeah, I like cats. You know, I grew up with a crazy cat lady as a mother.
Cool crane
So-
in it, and yeah, a lot of.
I
Good.
want to see Flow. I'll probably pick it up on physical media, so I'll own it. But I think the Wild Robot has it sewn up.
Was it? I think it was at Comic-Con last year. Did either of you guys get down to San Diego?
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
there doing True Noir.
Yeah.
Okay, so right outside the Omni, we ended up staying at the Omni, which is like right across the street from the convention center. The first day, there was just this big box sitting on the sidewalk outside of the Omni. And the next day, the box opened and the Wild Robot was inside. And I thought, this is some good ground level marketing. This works really, really well.
Yeah.
Well,
I
they
was
took it to another level, and Lupita Nyong'o was voicing it, and
Yes.
people would talk to her. It was amazing.
it was absolutely
It was
so
so cute.
creative, so well done. Anyway, I hope it does win. I think it is the best animated film of the year. We'll see if this is enough momentum to get it there. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Big sweeping wins for Wild Robot this week, kind of like Anora winning the PGA's, Critics' Choice, and the Annie Awards. Do you think it now has the leg up? Maybe you still think Flow is going to take it. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's talk about this, shall we? You know, a lot of people look forward to the Super Bowl for the football game. But in recent years, a lot of people also look forward to the Super Bowl just to see the commercials and us movie fans, the trailers. What movie spots are they going to show? So I thought we'd take a minute to go through the movie spots that dropped, break them down a little bit for you, and see how this one fared. All right, starting with this one.
Starting off big.
It's
Let's go, baby.
Most anticipated film.
The Smurfs spot. Listen, I honestly think this trailer is a crime against humanity. And listen, I say this with a great amount of love in my heart for Paramount. I love Paramount. I love a lot of things they've done recently. I'm excited for the studio. This is an abomination. This trailer spot is like so ill-advised. You know, I actually had a movie studio once. Had contracted me to give thoughts on scripts and stuff like that, and had Paramount thought to give me a call and say, hey, can you check this trailer out for us and let us know you think we should drop this? I would have saved you a lot of embarrassment because no, you should not. Yeah, Chris, has your mind changed on the Smurfs trailer at all?
No.
Oh, you like it?
Why? Why is it? Why do we keep trying to make this movie? There's somebody out there who loves the Smurfs. I bet.
I like the Smurfs. I would be down for a good Smurfs movie.
If there was a good one, I guess. I don't know. They keep not being good. And frankly, the show, even as a child, I was like, this is weird.
I loved it as a kid.
I mean, it's great at teaching you about socialism, which is, that's what that show's point thrust was. But
Rob, you think the big game spot moved the needle at all?
No, I'm with you guys. Like, here's the thing. To me, the Smurfs, I know the Smurfs are what they are, but I would much rather see a Smurf movie that's more along the lines of The Wild Robot than it is along the lines of whatever their swill they're serving up to us. I mean, there's a sensibility, there's something warm and fuzzy and heartwarming about the Smurfs. And
when done right.
Yeah, done right. To drench them in this modern pop culture. I mean, you watch the trailer, it's already dated. And
before we started, I told Ray, because I had to watch the trailer, I was forced to, and I was like, so this is gonna be my prediction: just past expiration, hip hop references, and then we're gonna have like some force, like this is the Gen Z happening now. It's like, well, now even if it was good, 20 years from now, it's gonna be so dated because they're gonna be like, that's not what's cool now.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
but the one saving grace this thing has is influencer Smurf. I mean, that was the stroke of genius right there.
That was
right?
basically what I was referring to.
How can this movie not succeed with influencer Smurf?
I mean, fairy tale characters should, I mean, there's a timeless quality to them. And when you make a fairy tale timeless, it can exist forever.
Mm-hmm.
Influencer?
Yeah.
Influencer
Why
Smurf.
not OnlyFans Smurf?
Hey, there we go.
Robert, no.
Don't look
That's
at my
what's
browser
next.
history.
Oh,
That's
no.
all I'm saying.
That's what's next. All right, we got to go move a little quicker here because there's a bunch to cover. Okay,
baby.
another big game spot they dropped was for Novocaine. I'm telling you what, I am shockingly excited for this movie.
It looks good.
I think the trailers have been great. Jack Quaid is on a roll, not just with The Boys. Also, he just did Companion, which he was great in Companion. And now he's got this coming out. You got Amber Midthunder from Prey, who's his co-star in this. I mean, it's a little dark man, right?
Yeah.
It's a little dark man.
Okay.
I can't feel pain. Okay. But you know what? It looks charming and delightful, and I love the spot, and I can't wait to see it. Where's your thoughts on this one right now?
Oh, man, I can't wait either. Especially because Jack Quaid, after my review of Companion on Instagram, said he loves me and that he would die for me.
He did. For those of you who don't know, he actually did. Randomly, he doesn't know Robert, doesn't follow Robert, but Rob put up his thing on Instagram how much he loved a Companion, and Jack Quaid literally reposted and said, I don't know who this man is, but I will die for him.
And I love him.
It was great. Jack
You
Quaid's
go,
that kind of
Jack
guy.
Quaid.
Yeah.
Where's your anticipation level like for this?
This looks great, honestly. I know I'm going to have a hard time with it. I'm going to probably watch some of it behind my hands, but this looks lovely. It looks so fun, and I love Jack Quaid.
I do
Oh
too.
my gosh. Talk about, everyone throws around Nepo Baby, right? This is a guy who has worked so hard.
He's earned it.
He's
earned it.
such a good performer. He's so great in whatever he does. I love him.
All right, let's move on to this one. This one's got some differing opinions, but they dropped the big game spot for Jurassic World. Now, of course, they did drop the trailer already. Like, that's the new trend. They dropped the Super Bowl trailers on YouTube a little bit early. Again, that's happened with many of these, but they dropped the big game spot. So we're really just kind of revisiting what we thought about the trailer. Listen, I'll tell you what. I am gaining enthusiasm for this Jurassic World movie. Now, that's not hard considering I was like, why are you doing this one? I get it. $1 billion franchise. I kind of like the trailer. And again, like to me, Rob, I was saying that the Jurassic World movies and Jurassic Park movies are just basically zombie movies. I mean, it's the same thing over and over again, but you can do better than others. They got a fresh take, whole new cast. I mean, Mahershala Ali accepted a role in this movie for a reason, I guess. He certainly wasn't busy with Blade.
Yeah.
But I like the spot. How did you feel about it?
I liked it. I mean, look, they've got the big attack on the boat in the water, which was something that was out of the first Jurassic Park novel that they never used. I like Scarlett Johansson a lot. I like Mahershala Ali a lot. My only problem with this movie more as a concept is that, okay, we're going back to the original test island where the
Is that
like
where they
Lost-
went for number 2 or number 3?
Feels like Lost World to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. It does Isla Sorna,
Mhm.
you know, and
Sorna,
it's
Nublar,
Isla
Sorna.
Nublar, Isla Sorna, and I'm like, okay, it's not exactly fresh in terms of its like. I want to see dinosaurs rampaging through like where lots of humans are.
Well,
Like,
that's
I
why
wanna
when we first reviewed this trailer, I said I hope there's a lot of people on that boat, because when they get to the island, I want there to be a lot of dino cannon fodder.
Yeah, that's what I want. I mean,
Yeah.
I want dinosaurs eating people.
Anyway, Chris, what do
And
you think about the
ninjas.
spot?
It's fine. It's fine. It's dinosaurs. I'm not particularly excited. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm usually very pumped about stuff, but all of these trailers so far, I'm like, yeah, it's a movie. It's
This is the
fine.
7th Jurassic Park movie. Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
this
Feels
just-
that way too.
Yeah, it feels. Like,
Yeah.
There's just not something exciting about this to me aside from the cast.
All right, let's move on to the 6th. The one that surprised me the most, and it's not really a trailer because I don't suspect any of this is going to be in the movie,
No.
but the Super Bowl spot for Lilo and Snitch. Snitch? Stitch.
Snitches
It's a crime movie. Lilo the
Snitches
Snitch.
Stitches.
I gotta tell you, man. When it first started, the thing running around in the field, I thought, is that like a remote control car? And then the camera gets closer. I'm like, oh my God, that's Stitch. I thought this was adorable. This is another movie that I didn't have a ton of enthusiasm about, but every time they put out a new little spot, and we still haven't seen anything from the movie.
I know, right?
No.
It's just Stitch. But I'm telling you what, I'm getting on board with wanting to see this little guy. This little guy in this movie. I thought this spot was adorable. Chris, what did you think about it?
I thought it was so precious. I loved it. It kind of reminded me too. The original Lilo and Stitch advertising campaign was
Yeah.
Stitch just showing up in different Disney trailers.
Disney stuff, yeah.
And it was so precious. And I thought this was a really great harkening back to that.
Rob, what do you think about it?
Same thing. I mean, it's clever. I thought it was fun. And look, I'm actually looking forward to seeing how this works in live action, to be honest. I mean, I think Lilo and Stitch is a great movie. I think it's a classic. And while do I object to it getting remade like everything else in live action? Yeah, because the movie, I mean, you're not going to better it.
No, it's precious.
But this may be, I mean, call it an announcement trailer. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
The trailer's pretty good. You
All
can't
right.
it puts a smile on your face.
Next one up, again, another one that dropped earlier, but the official launch of it was the Super Bowl. Megan 2.0. Again, like Lilo and Stitch, not footage from the movie, but it's just the doll saying, I'm back, sort of thing. It's like slaying in whatever the release date is, something like that. You know what? Effective. I thought it was effective. People liked Megan 2.0, or Megan. I did too. Surprisingly, I liked Megan. I had fun with it. And this was an effective kind of an announcement teaser. Because, listen, the showstopper for Megan is the doll. And so they just featured the doll. Again, it's not going to move the needle a lot, but I thought it was pretty effective. What did you think about the spot, Rob?
It was fine. You know, I've heard that they're going to take the T2 route, make her like good fighting against a cadre of like evil dolls. I don't like that. I don't want her to be good.
Yeah, neither do I. I don't mind bad fighting bad, but is still bad. But
Yeah,
I don't want her
it's-
to suddenly become a hero.
No,
Yeah.
man. I want her to be her. Be free, Megan.
Chris, what did you think about the spot?
I mean, I still haven't seen the first Megan, so I went,
Really?
okay. Yeah, I
For
keep.
some reason, I thought you did.
Everyone tells me that I love it,
You
and
would.
I need to see it, and I know I need to. So
It's
this
a kind of horror movie that I think you could appreciate
it
still.
feels kind of like Tucker and Dale adjacent
A little
comedy
bit.
horror, which I love. That's a genre that I really enjoy. But I just served as a reminder of, oh yeah, I still need to watch all of that movie. I've only seen parts of it. I need to watch the whole thing.
All right. Next one up. One of the rare times, although a brilliant move, they dropped a 30-second spot, a teaser for a trailer at the Super Bowl for How to Train Your Dragon, advertising that the full trailer is not out now. No. They did this right. They let everybody else get lost in dropping their trailers today. We're announcing the drop of the full trailer on Wednesday, so everybody can talk about the other ones first, like Thunderbolts. How to Train Your Dragon. I was very happy with the first little teaser they put out for How to Train Your Dragon. I loved this. I thought I love the voice. I love the animation. You know what? I didn't think they would make the dragons, like when we saw the other dragons, I didn't think they'd make them look like they did in the movie. They made them look like they did in the movie. And it totally worked. I loved it. And the air, I know when the aerial scenes started happening in the original animated thing, you do good aerial scenes, whether it's Superman flying through the sky or it's jets flying through the sky or dragons flying through the sky. I get really moved. And when we see him soaring through the sky with that music, dun, 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 and that music's going, I was getting goosebumps, and it's just the 30-second spot. I loved this spot. So sign me up for the How to Train Your Dragon one. Rob, what did you think about it?
Well, this is a great franchise. These movies are great. And, I was a little dubious about this, to be honest. And seeing this, I mean, look, it's just 30 seconds or whatever it was. But like you, I'm like, this might work. This might work.
Chris, what do you think about it?
I thought it was very charming, but the people I was watching with had very mixed reactions.
Really?
Some of them loved it, and others went, it looks like they're cosplaying How to Train Your Dragon. To which I said, what do you want from this? I went, well, it just looks like for a shot-for-shot remake from this trailer. Okay, what do you want then?
Yeah, what are you asking
and
for?
no one could tell me what they actually wanted, but it was just, it just looks like the cartoon. Okay.
And when it doesn't, people complain.
Yeah, it just was this great reminder of people just can't be happy sometimes. And I know I'm one of those people, Jurassic Park, but I think this looks charming.
All right. A couple more we're going to touch on here. The Mission Impossible spot. Again, listen, they're coming off of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, which did not do as well as they were hoping for. I still thought it was a very good movie, not one of the best Mission Impossible movies, but I thought it was very, very solid. This is a good trailer. And you know what? I think we're going to see, one of my buddies watching the Super Bowl with, because you see at one point, he's hanging onto a red plane. And then in this shot, he's hanging onto a yellow plane. Are we going to see Tom Cruise jump from one plane to another mid-flight? I'm thinking yes. Again, I like it. And they really focused in on, why am I freezing on the name of the Mantis actress?
Palm Clementif?
Palm Clementif.
Yeah.
This, folks, she was one of the best characters in the last movie. They give her a little bit more focus on her. She's clearly joining Ethan's team in this. I don't think it's as good as the How to Train Your Dragon spot or anything, but I thought it was a good trailer for this. Chris, what did you think about the Final Reckoning trailer?
I'm so negative today. It didn't move the needle for me in any way, shape, or form.
No!
I was just like, oh yeah, that movie's coming out. I'm just so tired of a lot of these franchises. I don't know. Get me more excited.
Rob, what did you think?
I gotta go with Chris on this. Only
Really?
because-
Wow, I
only
thought you guys
because-
would have liked it more.
But here's the thing. I liked what I've seen, but to me, it's if there's typical Mission Impossible, it's kind of what we're getting. You know what I loved in Mission Impossible? Like, I love Rogue Nation and Fallout. I want more character stuff. I like when the villains are talking or monologuing or talking, and this shots are great, but now we know by the time we get to the scenes with the biplanes in the movie, we will have seen them in every spot, every poster, everything. And by the time you get to the actual cool stunt, it's like, yeah, just what I expected.
All right, then the last one to touch on here, F1 dropped a new spot. And okay, look, let's just call it what it is. I think, what was the one based on the video game, the car racing movie based on the video game?
Gran
Speed?
Turismo?
Gran Turismo.
Okay.
I ended up liking that movie more than I thought I would. And it was the first time, listen, there have been good car racing movies. And I'm not saying Gran Turismo is as good of a movie as some of the other car racing movies, but it's the first car racing movie that I actually felt immersed in the action of the car race. Like, I felt the thrill. Like, even in much better movies, like the one that Chris Hemsworth is in, Rush. Thank you. That's a great movie, by the way.
Yeah.
Much, much better movie than Gran Turismo, but I never felt the rush. I never felt the thrill of being in there. In Gran Turismo, they did a pretty good job of making me feel that. And this having the same director as Top Gun Maverick, with actually bringing you as the audience member into the car. Watching this is great, but here's my critique. The last little teaser they put out for it was also all quick visual shots, no dialogue. And then they did it again. Gonna start to need giving us a little bit more.
Yeah.
But again, I gotta say, even though I'm not into car racing at all, never have been, I'm kind of really excited about this movie. Chris, what do you think about it?
Yeah, this was more of the same, but I'm excited about this film. My dad races cars. And so
I never knew that.
Yeah. Jeff Carr, when he retired, started jumping into Formula One vehicles, which is wild because he's 6'3". And so he just kind of like hunches into these things.
Wow.
He's fun. My dad's so cool. But I'm really excited about this. I love how it does put you in this kind of immersive state while you're watching the film as well. And I'm hoping that that's what this is like, is that we feel like we are in the car itself. It looks really exciting.
Rob?
I thought the photography in this is amazing. I mean, I grew up watching Grand Prix and Le Mans, the movies, and then give me any movie with car chases, whether it was Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, whether it was Vanishing Point, Two Lane Blacktop. I grew up loving car race movies, and I watched F1 stuff when I was a kid. The photography in this is insane. I mean, I think a lot of people don't. To me, it was jaw-dropping. And I know it's quick, but I can't wait to see what they've done with these car races. I can't wait. I'm very excited.
And it does, I mean, granted, it's from the same director, but it really does feel very Top Gun Maverick, only on the ground.
And to be, John, I want to say everything that I would want from the Fast and the Furious franchise in terms of car chases, which is why I love the movie.
Yes.
They've removed all the reality. This has taken reality of car racing and used photography to accentuate. So it looks, I can't wait to see this movie.
All right, guys, question is for you. What did you think about the spots we had on the Super? By the way, should be mentioned here, noticeable by its absence, there was no Superman spot. I was truly expecting instead we got James Gunn dropping a little thing on social media. Is that what you were about to mention?
I was going to say, because he went Puppy Bowl.
Oh, yeah, with the Nathan Fillion spot. Did you see the Nathan Fillion spot?
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
There's only one bowl that matters,
Yeah.
and it's Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner with the bowl cut. Okay, that was gold. That was pure gold. But anyway, what did you guys think about the lineup we had this year? Whatever you think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. That down, let's move on to this. You might have noticed in our last conversation that we just had about the trailer Super Bowl, there's one we didn't talk about, which was Thunderbolts. Because to me, it was by far and away, no questions asked, the best spot we had. I have been saying that I actually think, like, I'm looking forward to Captain America, I am, and I'm excited about Fantastic Four. But for some reason, I think I'm most excited for Thunderbolts. I've really liked the spots we've got so far. What they are doing so brilliantly with this marketing campaign, they're not just putting out great trailers. They are understanding that they're building on what we as the audience have already been exposed to. Okay, we showed them this. Now let's show them this that builds on what we saw before. And now let's show them this that builds on what they saw before. You know what they're not doing? They're not putting out a new trailer that is just 80% of the last trailer with about 20% new stuff. It's like, I watched this new trailer. It was completely fresh. And I gotta say, it is better than any trailer Captain America 4 has put out. It is better than the Fantastic Four trailer we got. I think it's better than the Superman trailer. And I love the Superman trailer. I loved this trailer. This had everything I wanted Thunderbolts to be. It is now not even close. It's a decided factor for me. My most anticipated movie of the year is still Superman. It is. But in the Marvel side, this is easily more than Daredevil Born Again. This is the Marvel project I'm actually most excited to see. And if you had asked me a year ago, it probably would have been somewhere in last for me. Red Guardian, I would absolutely 100% eat up a Disney Plus series just on Red Guardian. I love the fact that they're really leaning into the limitations of the character. I like how the trailer basically shows us that these guys are going to encounter Void early in the film, Sentry/Void early in the film, and they're just straight up going to get their asses handed to them. And they're like, we're out of our league. Like, what are we doing here? Which is exactly what I've always thought about. How can you have Sentry and the Void in this movie? What are the Thunderbolts going to do? And they kind of just own up to it right away. Like, I cannot believe how much I love this trailer. Not the best trailer I've seen in the last couple of years, but man, I'll tell you what, I questioned Rob when they even announced that they were doing the Thunderbolts. I admit, because I think we were doing a show, and I think I admit saying, why? Why are you doing a Thunderbolt? You think that's what you think that's what the MCU needs right now? a Thunderbolts movie. And I was very skeptical about it, and I was questioning their wisdom of it. I tell you, man, I don't think there's a single Marvel thing coming out this year that I'm looking forward to watch more. Anyway, you had a chance to see it. Was that void that was causing the darkness all over the place? What was your breakdown of it?
Well, watching what happened to those poor running people.
They're just smoked.
It was like not since Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds where people just went boom, and turned into dust.
Turned into shadows.
I mean,
basically.
it was
burned shadows on the ground.
That was really disturbing. I was like, that's really, really cool. And then they had a couple of shots where you saw Sentry flying, in the distance. You don't see his costume. You just see a guy flying with a cape. I mean, I really enjoyed this trailer. I loved all the character interplay, but I have to say one thing. This felt to me like a movie unto itself. Like I'm watching this going, okay, this looks cool, but it didn't. And I know these characters. I've seen all these characters in the MCU, but again, it feels like it's an island unto itself. When I was watching Guardians of the Galaxy, it's like, okay, we're now going cosmic with the MCU. We're going somewhere we haven't been. This movie feels almost like, okay, it could be good, but what does this have to do with everything else?
But should we stop with that? Like, shouldn't movies be good movies in and of themselves, and it should stop being looked at as, but how does this tie into Shang-Chi, right?
But the thing is, they've set that up over 15 years, and I'm looking at these characters. All these characters were from movies or TV shows, and they've furthered their own stories. And I'm watching this all, and I can't help but think, how does this follow up on? It must follow up from Brave New World. There's got to be some lead in to this, and if so, I guess it's because we were anticipating. We knew in the beginning of the MCU that it was leading to Avengers, so it's like, ooh, we know where this is going. There was some idea, and then we knew Thanos was out there. There was always something, and with this, the idea of Void and Sentry, that's a big deal. But we've not had any inkling that was going to be even an issue until this movie. So I like this trailer a lot. I'm excited. I like the character interplay. And by the way, did you see that they tweeted out a Wheaties box?
Yes.
And there was all these people up in arms about it. I'm like, come on. They were following up on a joke that Red Guardian made that was funny, and they're doing this, and people are like, hey, look at this. It looks like Photoshop. And I'm like, do you not get that it was a joke from the trailer? And I'm like, it's just where everyone's so quick to be triggered. And I'm like, that was funny. It was funny. I really enjoyed this, and I thought the trailer was great. My only question is, how does it? I want to be more excited about it. That's it.
But those individual films didn't necessarily lead to each other.
But they were giving us characters we didn't know. Like Guardians, we hadn't met any of the Guardians before, so it was all brand new and fresh. Mm-hmm. Whereas these characters, we've all met them.
Because this is about redemption. This movie.
Yeah, and it's that's the thing. It's a movie that's clearly about them, not about the wider MCU. And by the way, I thought it was interesting the way they started it directly with an Avengers reference.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
that was
straight up
what
says,
I was gonna say.
The Avengers are not coming.
Right.
So what we have is this. Now, how it does or does not tie into the wider MCU, I mean, we got to watch the movie for that. I don't think
that's
trailers...
true, but that was my favorite thing. The Avengers aren't coming.
Yeah, the Avengers aren't
They're
coming.
not coming.
Because that's been a big point you've been raising for a couple of years now, is like, the MCU has been very quiet on what is the status of the Avengers right now. And you right there, you have Elaine coming out and saying,
Elaine.
the Avengers aren't coming. And we're left with this. Now, how it ties into the rest, we'll kind of have to see. Anyway, Chris, what were your impressions of the trailer?
Oh, I love it so much. I think it's wonderful. And I had the opposite reaction of, oh, okay, here's why they're here. The Avengers aren't coming. This is what we've got. This is what you get to deal with. So I love that we have these guys coming in. I love that Bucky's arm is machine washable. Thank God that can go in the dishwasher. Of course it can. Well done, Wakanda. I think this looks so fun. And I don't feel like it's an island. For me on this one, it was, oh, this makes sense for me, where I feel like this movie is justified from this trailer.
Yeah.
Of, okay, so this is why we're bringing in the, not even B team, we're bringing in the D team as far as heroes are concerned.
It's the other guys.
Yeah.
We're bringing in the other guys.
They do a great job of doing that and not making it feel, because this has been the big issue too for people who kind of read comics or don't really read comics, of, oh, this is Marvel Suicide Squad. Not really.
Right.
It's not really that. And I think they've done a good job of setting up what the tone of what this film is going to be. I'm wildly excited about this one.
It's more like they're the Wild Bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
that.
And one of the big, I've seen a lot of people trying to make connections or comparisons to Suicide Squad. The difference is these are all broken characters that want to be good.
Yeah.
Like, remember, even Walmart Captain America, his motivation was to be a hero.
Yeah.
He wanted to be a hero. Ghosts, I mean, I didn't love Ant-Man 2 as much as I love the first one. But the thing about Ghost, when you understand her motivation and what she was doing, she was not a villain per se. Yelena was not a villain. Bucky was. Actually, that's a great thing that I think one of the things they're doing in that opening scene when she says, the Avengers aren't coming and Bucky's there. I know there's been a lot of people who have said, why didn't would have made more sense for Cap to give Bucky the shield. And first of all, I don't think Cap should have given it to Bucky or Sam, but that's neither here nor there. But one of the things I've always said is that it couldn't be Bucky, because Bucky, for whatever reason, he's been an assassin killing a lot of people for decades and decades and decades and decades. You can't just suddenly say, this is now your Captain America. And I wonder if him being in that hearing has something to do with Valentina trying to, create a sanctioned team, and Bucky Barnes is going to be my front guy on it. And it's going to be a hard sell for something like that. So I wonder if that's going to be a part of it too. Mm-hmm. But Rob, let me go over to you on this. The part to me that I've always been a little bit confused about when we found out Sentry was going to be there is if they do indeed go Void, which, look, for those of you who don't read or know much about the comic story of this, Void's bad. Like, really, really bad. Like, can't let Void out no matter what, cosmic level bad. And so you're having Sentry, who's basically Marvel's Superman. Like, how do you set up this movie with, as Yelena points out, so we're people who shoot guns and punch. What are we going to do?
Right.
Like, I'm kind of feeling that. Do you have any theories about how they're going to, like, deal with Sentry / Void?
Well, I think that they can't. I think something's going to happen. Whatever that something is, I don't know. But there's going to be something that occurs that they aren't responsible for. I don't know, but that's one of the things I'm most interested about, because these characters just don't have the capability, even combined, to combat whatever Void is, and
unless there's some like Ark of the Covenant MacGuffin of some sort.
And are they split apart at this point? Sentry and Void, and then you're going to see the combination. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I mean, all that stuff's really cool. Like I said, I love seeing those people get shadowed. That was really terrifying. I'm like, wow, that's really didisturbing. I'm like,
effortless.
Yeah.
Just poof, and people are dying.
Yeah,
and
it
getting
reminds me of
out.
War of the Worlds, the Korean thing when the monsters came out of hell and were pulling people down. It was great.
Chris, you got any theories about how on earth do you have a team like the Thunderbolts being faced with a challenge like Void / Sentry? Like, how are they going to bridge that gap?
The power of friendship.
The Care Bears?
Yeah,
The
they're going to do the Care Bear stare. They're all going to
You
shoot hearts
can
out of their
find
tummies, and it's going to be precious. Yeah, it's going to be some kind of comic-y MacGuffin, I think. There's going to be some kind of artifact or some kind of thing.
That will split them apart, then Sentry can fight Void.
Yeah. My big fear here with Sentry and Void is, do not do the Monster of the Week thing with Void. Please, please, please do not make this a one and done. I need this to be a threat that looms here of Void could come back or something is unresolved with Void. I just have a problem with how Marvel a lot of times does the one and done with their villains, because they don't feel like real threats when it's just, and we handled that and we're good to move on. I want something that has a bit more of an arc, and that's a villain that I think you can really do a lot with.
Let me ask you this question though. Is there room? And this is not this is a theoretical question. It's not rhetorical. Mm-hmm. Is there room in the MCU for a lot of ongoing villains? Because not only are they now going to be setting up Doctor Doom, not only now are we going to start to have an influx of X-Men level villains and stuff like that. Is there room in the Pantheon to have something like a Void show up and still be out there? I mean, the Celestials are still out there. There's a lot of that. Is there room, or is it almost a necessity? And again, not a rhetorical question. Is it almost a necessity to have these characters come in and then kill them out quickly to make room for the other villains coming. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think much like Wicked, we can all hold space. You know, we can have these other people here because that's what we as comic book fans have been doing for years. You know that another big bad could come into the mix or be an unlikely ally, somebody you have to deal with to fight a different big bad. And you have to make this, you know, uncomfortable alliance, much like we're planning on seeing with Daredevil. Right? You have a lot of room to have them there and waiting in the wings so that we have the threat of that, especially with Sentry, where it is another aspect of him is being held at bay. That's really scary to welcome somebody like that onto your team, to have them around, you know, all of humanity when they could break bad at any moment. I think those kinds of things, you can't have them waiting in the wings. And there's room for people to understand that somebody can come back. I think our audiences are a little more clever than we give them credit for.
By the way, speaking of our audience, a lot of people in the live chat talking about, like, you know, we're going to have Galactus. I don't think Galactus is going to be one and done in Fantastic Four.
No.
I mean, Doom is going to be enduring, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or like maybe they just ultimately, like you said, the threat of them returning is enough. Like maybe just they figure out a way for Sentry to control Void and put him, because much in the comic, Sentry is just always just fighting to keep Void contained.
Exactly.
So Void doesn't come out. But the threat is there, like you're saying. So maybe that's enough. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What did you think of the Thunderbolts trailer? I'm not going to lie to you, man. This movie that I poo-pooed on when they first announced it and I thought it was a dumb idea, I'm getting more and more excited. I loved this trailer. I thought it won the Super Bowl. Maybe you feel differently about it. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, it's time for us to go on to the most important part of our show, which is, of course, taking your live comments and questions. But before we do, we're going to take a quick moment and thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at NordVPN. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, NordVPN. All right, let's be real. There's nothing worse than wanting to stream your favorite show or watch a live game only to find out it's blocked in your country. But guess what? With NordVPN, that is never a problem. With just one click, you can switch your virtual location and access content from anywhere in the world. I have loved using NordVPN. Whether I'm traveling and using public Wi-Fi or just shopping online, NordVPN keeps my personal info safe and private. By switching my location, I can even save money on flights, hotels, and subscriptions. It's like a cheat code for getting the best deals. NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world, so there's no buffering when I'm streaming. Plus, their threat protection feature blocks malware, trackers, and phishing attempts, keeping my devices safe 24/7. And with just one account, I can protect up to 10 devices, so my whole setup is covered. So to get the best discount on your NordVPN plan, head to nordvpn.com/John Campea, and our link will even give you 4 extra months for free on the 2-year plan. Plus, there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Links in the description. Check it out now. And thank you to our friends at NordVPN for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. Look who joined us. Ray Orr's in here now.
It's so warm on this chair right now. I don't want to imagine why it's warm.
First question Ray asked when he comes in the room when Rob was leaving, did you fart in my chair? I was like, no, never. All right, guys, let's get on now to the important part of our show, which again is taking your live comments and questions. Jonathan, what we got up first?
Forever Anonymous says, I was in Hall H at SDCC last year for the Deadpool Wolverine screening, 2 rows behind Rob Liefeld, who was sitting next to Brandon Davis. I thought then that it was odd that Liefeld didn't get more VIP treatment than press. His presence wasn't even acknowledged.
Look, I like Rob. We've had him into our studio. He's a super charming guy. But look, I got to ask you this. How long is he supposed to get the VIP treatment? Like he's honestly not connected to the movie. He didn't work on the movie. He didn't do anything in the movie. And he got all the flowers when the first Deadpool came out. And he got tons of flowers when the second Deadpool came out. I just, how long is he supposed to be treated as if he's the one who made this movie or had anything? Look, they even put his name in the movie. They gave him his own Easter eggs in it and stuff like that. Again, I talked about this when the whole thing came up. How do you have the creator of Deadpool at the premiere, but not invite them to the after party? Like, to me, that's inexcusable and inexplicable, but again, not that big a deal. Again, the question I would have though, so is this supposed to be in memoriam? Is this supposed to be forever, that whenever Deadpool and the studio does something with Deadpool, Rob Liefeld should be brought on the press tour and he should be put front and center? I don't know. I feel like he got the royal treatment for a couple of years, and should he have been invited to the after party? 100% he should have been. Does he need to be treated when he has nothing to do with the movies like royalty forever whenever they come out with a movie? I don't know if I agree. Anyway, who knows? I'm sure I could have my mind changed about that. I could. Anyway, what's next?
Dylan says, hey, John and crew, have you seen the leaked auditions for James Bond in Casino Royale with a young Henry Cavill and Anthony Starr giving their takes on the role? While both were unique, I think it proves how perfect Daniel was for Bond at the time. Thanks.
I did. You know, we've talked a lot about over the years that, you know, Henry Cavill, before he got the Superman role, he was right on the cusp of breaking into superstardom for a while, because he was number one. He was the runner-up, I think, for the Superman role back when Brandon Routh got it. And he was the runner-up for James Bond when Daniel Craig got it. And I think the tapes prove that he would have been a great Bond. Again, I think they went with the right guy. I think Daniel Craig ended up perfectly embodying James Bond. Again, I always say this, but he was the best blend of the suaveness of the Roger Moore Bond with the badassness of the Sean Connery Bond. He was the perfect hybrid of that. So they picked the right guy, but I think that just kind of proves why I would love to see Henry Cavill as James Bond. I really would. All right, what's next?
Tom says the ton of bad vibes at the Oscars, or that the Oscars are having this year. Conan might need Triumph as backup just to address Emilia Perez. It is going to be a difficult night for Coco.
Nah,
but you're not gonna troll a nominee. That's the thing. He doesn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, no, honestly, I really don't think the Emilia Perez stuff, especially with the lead performer, is all that. Honestly, I think to most people it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think there are those of us in our little bubble that we exist in that make it a bigger deal, but I really don't think it's going to overshadow much, to be honest with you. All right, what's next?
Mike says, I'm concerned with new Marvel and DC movies ahead and improvements in VFX that they risk just becoming VFX fest dumps. Take the last Doctor Strange movie as an example, which was VFX frenzy. I want to see characters and drama. Sure, VFX are cool, but they shouldn't be the entire focus of the movie experience, which is where I feel they've been going. What are your thoughts on this? Are movie studios going over the top with VFX, and should they be scaled back in favor of storytelling?
You're making a false distinction that the two terms are mutually exclusive. Like, you're making this false assumption that if you have VFX, you can't have good storytelling. What the VFX do, to kind of loosely quote George Lucas when he was making the prequels and stuff like, and again, I thought the prequels sucked, but still, his thought and his philosophy was right. What the new era of visual effects are allowing is that filmmakers can let their storytelling go in a lot of different directions that they never could before, right? There are simply stories that some filmmakers want to tell that will require a lot of CGI to tell the story. And now sometimes, just like any other movie, you can have a movie with no CGI that is good or bad. And you can have a movie with a lot of CGI that has good story or bad story. They do not negate each other. It's not like having a lot of CGI means you can't have a good story. Guess what? Wild Robot is all computer generated animation. And it's remarkably brilliant. They do not cancel each other out. It's just meant to be that there are stories you couldn't tell before because the technology didn't exist that you could put it on screen, really. And now there are. And it can be used great. Listen, a lot of people accused Infinity War and Endgame of just being big CGI fests. But Infinity War's story was great. It was great. Not because of CGI, but rather CGI just kind of facilitated that the certain things that the storytellers want to do could be done. Again, having a lot of CGI doesn't mean your movie's going to be good, and it doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It's just another tool in the filmmaker's tool belt to tell their story. You still got to have a good story. And again, I would say there's a lot of movies out there with no CGI that have terrible stories. So when a movie with a lot of CGI has a terrible story, don't fall victim to the mentality of, oh, it must have had a bad story because it had a lot of CG. False equivalency. Don't let your mind go there. All right, what's next?
Okay, we got Anonymous who says, hey, John, was wondering your thoughts on the Chinese film Ni Jia 2 being the first billion-dollar film of 2025 and doing it in only 11 days, the third fastest, and the most money in one market all time, surpassing Force Awakens in the U.S. Impressive all around.
I don't give it any credit at all. And I've said this for years. Globally, almost globally, box office at films are calculated by and vetted by Rentrax, an independent third-party company that is kind of the core for vetting, legitimizing, going over all the box office numbers for movies almost globally, with one big exception: China. China reports its own numbers, whatever numbers they want. Again, am I sitting here and telling you any box office numbers that come out of China are complete nonsense? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying because they don't go through the same vetting and fact checking that almost every other country does, going through Rentrax, I'm sorry, I don't take China's reporting of China's movie numbers at face value. It's not an accusation. It's simply me telling you I don't give it credence personally. And I could be totally wrong about that. The numbers always coming out could be completely legitimate. But I've said for years when people bring up certain box office numbers coming out of China, I just simply say, listen, it might very well be that. But because those movies and those box office numbers do not go through the vetting process that every other one does, I can't make an issue. I can't make a story out of it when China says, our Chinese movie did this at the box office. According to who? According to us. Again, it might be completely valid, but until they change their system and start running their box office numbers through Rentrax as well, I have no reason that I should believe it. So I always take it with a grain of salt, any box office numbers coming out of China. All right, what's next?
We got Dildar the Glorious says, can you guys believe The Sims are 25 years old now? Got any crazy moments to share if you guys played it? I'm currently playing The Sims 2, woohooing everything I see, being total scumbag. I never played The Sims. Did you guys ever play The Sims?
You know what? It's first of all, you're right. It's crazy. It's been 25 years. Been a massively popular game for like 25 years.
Yeah. Never
Never once played it.
Oh,
Did you ever play, Ray?
Yeah, I did try a little bit of Sims 4. I like it. It's just not my type of game. Like, if I'm gonna do a sim, it's gonna be like a roller coaster one. This one is you take the place of a character, right? You try to get them a life,
Kinda
I
build a
guess.
life, yeah.
And there's some funny things I had to try, like get drunk or like go to a party, be all wasted, whatever, like that. But I didn't play it through enough to even appreciate it as much as all the fans do.
All right, what's next?
We got Movie Man says, hey, John, I decided to watch all 3 Paddington films this week since 3 had an early screening. I got to say I'm speechless how amazing these films are, and everyone I've asked has never seen 1 or 2. Pedro was right. I want to become a better man.
Okay, Paddington 1 or 2, and I say this with no irony or hyperbole, are masterpiece movies. They're practically perfect little films for what they are. I was so skeptical about I remember the first time I went to go see it, I didn't even want to go see it. And I asked John Schnepp, like I think Ann was out of town, and I asked John Schnepp, hey man, I got to go see this Paddington. I got a +1 for it. You feel it coming? And he's like, I'll take a bullet for you. I'll come with you, Campea. And so Schnepp came with me, and like neither of us wanted to see it. And we both came out, oh my God, Paddington's so good. Like we couldn't believe it. And 2 was almost even better. I went to go see an early screening, an early fan event of Paddington on Saturday. I put up
Paddington, Peru?
What's that? Paddington in
yeah.
Peru. Yep. And I put up a out of theater reaction this week. You can find it on YouTube or on my socials. And I do not think Paddington in Peru is as good as 1 or 2, but it's still wonderful. It's still wonderful. There were several. Anne was dabbing the napkins on her eyes.
Enough to consider it still a good trilogy or one of the best trilogies, or did it actually bring it down to being considered one of the best? Would you buy a box set of all three if they sold it? Like,
I mean,
let's say if
taking out the fact that I don't buy physical media.
Yeah. Let's say.
Yeah, I would. But do I think, again, if it was on the level of 1 and 2, I would say it's in the conversation of the top greatest trilogies ever.
Oof.
But it doesn't get into that conversation.
Aw.
Again, Paddington 3 is wonderful. Go see it when it opens here in North America. I think it's in a couple of weeks. Go to see it. It's still charming and delightful and wonderful. Again, just not on that same level of epic greatness that Paddington 1 and 2 were. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, gang, I'm playing catch up and heard Rob and Jonathan talking about a Miss Moneypenny film. During World War II, Julia Childs was the U.S. version of Miss Moneypenny at the OSS for director Bill Donovan. So you might say Julie and Julia is actually the Miss Moneypenny movie. I don't know about that, but, you know.
I guess you could. I mean, there's always been conversations about, when you're talking about, especially when cinematic universes became the big thing, about can you do a cinematic universe revolved around James Bond? Can you have a 003 movie? Can you have a Q movie? Can you have an M movie? Whatever version of M you want. Can you have a Moneypenny movie? Can you have, there's always been a lot of questions about that. I think it might be something they can explore if their next James Bond movie, whenever that happens, is a big hit and people love it, and we'll see where they can go with it. All right, what's next?
He Who Is Not says Canada has 2 theater chains, Landmark and Cineplex, with identical movie subscriptions, $9.99 for one movie a month, plus some discounts on food and drinks. Is there an incentive for theaters in Canada to offer more? I would pay $20 for a movie a week.
Yeah, and let's face it, there's really one movie theater chain in Canada, and that's Cinemark. I mean, Landmark, Cinemark has so many more theaters than Landmark does, which is unfortunate. Although I gotta say, Ann and I went to go see Companion in Canada when we were up visiting our family, my family, and our family. And I gotta say, it was a really good experience at Cinemark. That being said, I absolutely think theaters in Canada can benefit from an AMC A-List or a Regal Unlimited type of movie loyalty program. The big challenge today for movie theaters is getting the audience back into theaters. And to do that, you're going to need to take some measures and some steps. And it doesn't have to be identical as AMC A-List or Regal Unlimited. No. But I think something, again, and their membership program is good. $9.99 and you get a movie, that's already saving you money. Plus you get some discounts on your concessions. That is also saving you money. It's good. I'm not taking away from that. But I think if you want to start really getting the audiences back in, offer them a better deal. $25, $30 a month for 4 movies a month. Oh, that saves you money right there. That saves you a bunch of money right there. Yeah, I do think they need to expand that program. All right, what's next?
King says, John, Invincible Season 3 is a big improvement over Season 2 so far. Thematically tight, solid writing and pacing. Interesting conflict about retribution versus redemption. That's foreshadowing how to handle a repentant Omni-Man. Worth checking out while airing week to week now. I
am caught up on Invincible Season 3. And I wholeheartedly agree. I still don't think it's as good as Season 1. It's much better than Season 2. Season 2 nearly made me tap out of the series. As much as I loved Season 1, I was very meh on Season 2. Season 3 has been quite good so far. And having read, I have not read all the Invincible comics, but having read a bunch, knowing where things are going with Invincible's ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend is like, oh, and I was wondering if they would even touch on that storyline. But as soon as Adam Eve and her talking, she goes, I got a new guy. I'm like, oh my God, they are going to do that story. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle that, because that gets grim. But yeah, let's see if they can continue it. But so far, season 3 is I think much better than season 2, and I'm into it. All right, what's next?
Kevin says, about halfway through the second quarter, and I'm reminded of your Super Bowl prediction you made weeks ago. At the time, I thought you were being pugnacious. But obviously not. May be a big win for you tonight. Well, it was.
I mean, yeah. Listen, I just thought I didn't think you had to be super smart at football to see it. I mean, it was really clear. It was a bad matchup for Kansas City. It's not that, I mean, I think there are teams Kansas City could beat that maybe Philadelphia couldn't beat, but matchups make fights, and matched up, Philadelphia was just a very, very, very bad matchup for Kansas City, because I said this, Kansas City's offensive line was going to have no answers for Philadelphia's defensive line. They were too big, too strong, too fast, too much. And I said they were going to dominate their offensive line, and they did. 6 sacks without blitzing once. People who don't watch sports are not going to care what any of that means. But for those of you who do, think about that. 6 sacks and 1 million pressures without blitzing once. They were able to rush 4 and drop 7 into coverage every play because their defensive line was so powerful. And I said this game was going to be over by the time you get a little bit into the fourth quarter. Like it wasn't going to come down to the wire. It was going to be over by the time, and it was. And it was just, I didn't think it was that hard to see. All right, what's next?
We got Better Adobo says, crazy that movie theaters make you watch 30 minutes of ads before the movie. We have ads too, but all movies start on time in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And with how big malls are here, do they have big malls in the Philippines?
Yeah, they have huge malls.
You better start running if you are still at the entrance 5 minutes before the start.
And that's the way it should be. You tell us, you sell me a movie ticket that says 7 p.m. on it. You better fucking show me the movie at 7 p.m. If you want to, if as we get in early, because I show up a little bit early to everything. So I show up 10, 15 minutes early to get my seat and I get comfortable, buy my sodas and whatever. And you want to show commercials before 7 p.m., knock yourself out. That's great. But again, I brought this up the other day. I said this and I stand by it. If you paid for Netflix and you paid monthly for Netflix, you are a Netflix subscriber, you pay them the $17.99 a month. How would you feel if you clicked on the next episode of Stranger Things and it said, thank you for joining us for the new episode of Stranger Things. Your show will start in 30 minutes after you watch these 30 minutes of commercials. You wouldn't stay subscribed to Netflix for very long. You wouldn't subscribe to Netflix for very long. You'd be ending your subscription pretty fucking fast. But for some reason, when it comes to being movie fans, we've become sheep. And say, because over the years, it used to be 5 minutes of trailers, then 10 minutes, then 15, then 20, then 25, now 30 plus minutes. And they've conditioned the movie audience to just go, and just accept it. And we never would for anything else. We wouldn't for anything else. If I turned on Apple TV Plus to start watching the new episode of Severance, and at first it said, first you must watch these 30 minutes of commercials, I'd be like, well, I'm done with Severance. Yo ho, it's a pirate's life for me because I'm done with Severance. If they did that on Apple TV Plus, we'd be all canceling our Apple TV Plus. But we just accept it that the movie theaters do it to us, and we should not. Anyway, all right, what's next?
A good Canadian Chris. Hi, John. If theaters told us what time the trailers end, do you think some people would skip them? And if so, would advertisers offer less money to advertise? Would the theaters then pass the revenue losses onto the customers in order to meet their margins?
So this is the wildest straw man argument that everybody always throws up. Well, if people knew when the movie started, most of them would skip the trailers. Yeah. And that's our choice. We paid to be there. I'm a paying customer. It's like saying this. Let's say you ordered a pizza. Okay? This is a very accurate analogy. Follow me here. Let's say you ordered a pizza. You jumped on, I don't know, Papa John's, Domino's. Domino's pizza is disgusting. Jumped onto something and you bought a pizza. You paid $25 for maybe 2 small medium pizzas to get delivered to your house. And then they come to your house, and when the delivery driver shows up, knocks on the door, you open the door, but before he hands you the pizza, he wants to give you a 20-minute presentation on a timeshare. Thank you for ordering the pizza and buying the pizza. I have the thing you bought, but before I give it to you, I want to tell you about this beautiful condo you can have 3 months out of the year in Florida. Well, John, if you skipped that presentation, then the company's making less money. But I paid for the pizza. You don't get the right. Once you charge me, you don't get the right anymore to subject me to other things that may make you money. That's 30 minutes of my time. And the fact that there are still people out there who try to justify what they do, you would not accept it in any other thing. Again, you go into a restaurant, you order a steak, you paid for the steak. It said $28 for this little steak or $65 for this slightly better steak. Whatever, okay, you paid the money. Then the waiter comes to the table with the linen. Now, before I give you this steak that you paid for, let me tell you about, I don't know, what's a good multi-level marketing scheme? Does Amway even exist anymore? Probably not. Let me give you this 25-minute sales presentation, because we make some money if we give you a 25-minute sales presentation. I'm going to say, fuck you. I paid you for the steak that you're holding in that hand. I didn't fucking pay you for a 25-minute sales presentation on something else. Oh, but we make some of our money by giving these sales presentations. Not my problem. Not my problem. Ask me how much 25 minutes of my time is worth. Give me the steak I paid for. Anyway, that's my way of looking at it. All right, what's next?
Go Bird says, Eagles. Yeah, whenever this gets read, I'm probably still drunk, but what a belt ass whooping on some movie stuff. Hyped for Cap 4, but Thunderbolts looks crazy. Feels uniquely cool without just copying Suicide Squad.
Yeah, it's a very distinct thing from Suicide. These are very different characters. Their motivations are very different.
Oh my God, they sold the Sentry.
What are we talking about? Oh, you mean in the trailer?
Yeah. Oh my God.
They showed
it's a shadow.
Sort of
He's
showed
got the
Sentry.
cape on and everything.
Not giving us a full-blown Sentry look yet. But yeah, that was one of the worst. By the way, the final score ended up being very deceiving. For anybody who just looks at the final score and says, well, yeah, it was a big win, but it wasn't a total. No. It was a complete ass.
Those were, I barely tuned in like in the final quarter, and those were such gimmies. They're like, knock your heart out. Like,
yeah.
Do whatever. We don't care.
It was one of the worst ass kickings. Definitely the worst ass kicking I've seen at the Super Bowl since the Broncos played the Seahawks, and the Seahawks surprised them. Seriously, it's one of the worst ass kickings I've ever seen.
It was one of the Bengals, I think, their worst loss this season, too. So I knew there was something with the Eagles.
Yeah.
I think the Bengals' scores this year were very close. And then I was looking up and down at all the games, and I think the Eagles one was like 30-12 or something. It was like, yeah.
Yeah, they
were
were
a problem.
They were a nasty team.
Do you think they're going to be a problem next year?
Eagles?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Back to back?
You're going to have, well, here's the problem. There's going to be a couple of teams that improve, right? And there's a couple of teams that the Eagles don't match up that well against. For example, they don't match up that great against the LA Rams, right?
Right.
The Rams nearly beat them because the Rams line matches up better with Philadelphia's line. And so I think you're going to see, and by the way, the Rams have a very, very young team, especially on the defensive side.
No Cup though, right? No more Cup.
They're not going to have Cooper Kupp, but that's kind of okay because you got Puka Nacua in there. Anyway, we don't want to make this a sports show, but I wouldn't put a lot of money against the Eagles repeating. I'll say that. All right, what's next?
We got Benny, who says, hi, John and crew. In regards to cinemas and trailers, it does not seem as bad here in Australia, but if I book a movie and I want to know when the actual movie starts, I simply call the cinema and ask. I know this isn't a solution, but maybe an option. I don't even think they'd have that answer for us. Okay, if I
nope, they won't. First of all, good luck in North America to even get a real person on the phone. Good luck with that.
Right.
And then like I know I have asked when I worked at AMC, I've gone into the theater and asked one of the, hey, what time does this one actually start? Most of them don't know. Like the manager, assistant managers, or programmers might have a list of the actual start times and everything like that, but most of them won't actually know. Again, it is an option, but it's not something that should be, the onus is on us to figure it out. Listen, it's not an unreasonable, like, why are some people treating this like it's some big unreasonable thing? I bought a movie ticket. Tell me when the actual movie starts. Why is it to some people that's like some crazy idea? It's not crazy. I paid you $18 for a movie ticket to see a movie. When can I actually watch the thing I paid for? When, because I didn't pay for the trailers. I didn't pay for commercials. Tell me when the movie starts. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. Anyway, what's next?
What is next? Movie Fan says, I was wondering how a fan could attend a Marvel red carpet premiere without being invited like influencers.
You can't.
Can anyone attend the fan pits? What are the chances of seeing the actors for autographs, pics? Thank you.
It's difficult. I think you have to probably win some kind of contest or something like that to be in those fan pits. I don't think it's just, they just open the doors and let anybody in. I think you probably have to get pre-approved and get pre-passes, and how you get those, honestly, I don't know. And you know, one of the big things, I've often had people write to me over the years saying, John, I'm starting a podcast, I'm starting a YouTube channel. How can I get invited to premieres? You can't. Like, there's no application process. Look, I can only speak from my own personal experience, but from my own personal experience, like, I never called anybody. I never applied to anything. It's just once your podcast or YouTube channel or blog or whatever starts to get big enough, and the PR people at the studios and at the agencies, you start getting on some of their radars because you're getting big enough and influence enough, they'll start reaching out to you. That's what happened to me. It's just at some point, I still remember my first one. I got out of nowhere, I got invited, my very first time I did anything official, I got invited to Oliver Stone's 9/11 movie, the one that had Nick Cage in it.
Yeah.
They invited me to come down. They were doing a press junket in Toronto, and they said, would you like to come and interview Oliver Stone? And I was like, what? You're inviting me to come and interview Oliver Stone? And then another studio started inviting me. And then before you knew it, all the studios had me on their press list. Then a couple of years ago, I told them all to take me off their press list. But keep your eyes open for contests is my best answer. And if you're actually a podcaster and want to start being on these lists, get your podcast big enough that they notice you, and then you'll start getting invited. All right, what's next?
Harv's case. Oh no, sorry. Spooky Jim says it's a great morning in Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts continues to prove why he's here. Go Birds.
You know what the funny thing is? I like Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I mean, he had a good game last night. Threw for 220, 230 yards, something like that. It's kind of a pedestrian number. Threw a pretty bad pick. He ran well. Jalen Hurts, you know what he is? Jalen Hurts is the perfect quarterback for this Philadelphia Eagles team.
Absolutely.
That's what he is. I still don't think he's a top 5 quarterback in the league, but he's the perfect fit for that team, and they're going to continue to have great success. All right, what's next?
We got Harv's K, who says, hey, John, I also saw an early screening of Paddington 3 on Saturday, and though I enjoyed it, it was a drop down from the first 2. Sadly, I think it's probably enough to take these movies out of contention for greatest movie trilogy.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. I agree. Again, I thought it was a very good movie. I enjoyed it immensely, but it wasn't like super iconic level, like I think like epic great level as I think Paddington 1 and 2 were. So it's just not in the same league as Paddington 1 and 2, but still wonderful. I highly recommend the movie. Do go see it. All right, what's next?
Harv's cases during an AMC screening of Paddington 3, my theater started showing trailers for more mature films, including 28 years later, the Scary Poem one. Parents were covering the eyes and ears of their children. The theater did stop the trailer and apologized.
Yeah, you got to think that through.
I think they just probably mixed the wrong file.
Yeah. Listen, I've seen that happen, right? Hell, I've been in movie theaters where they started playing the wrong movie. So it'll happen that maybe once in a while they run the wrong trailer package with the movie. But yes, you got to be particularly careful of that when you showing a family film.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Start putting red band trailers in there. Anonymous says, "Hi, John and crew. I'm no fan of Rings of Power, but it's been reported season 2 viewership was down 60%. Due to this terrible drop, do you think Amazon will cancel or greenlight season 3 as still not confirmed to a least try and bring the show to a final conclusion?"
No, I don't think that's true at all. I think this season debuted much lower because of how disappointing the first season was. The first season was disappointing. And so it debuted that, but week after week, the charts came out. Week after week, the viewership went up and up and up and up. And that's what they were excited. That's why the Amazon execs immediately greenlit season 3 and started rolling on season 3. So that's already happening. So yeah, it was not a surprise that the initial numbers were quite low because season 1 was a big disappointment, but they started winning a lot of people back over, including me, because they had kind of lost me after season 1, but they won me back over with season 2. And that's why they greenlit a season 3. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, "Hey, John, but when both Black Panther 2 and Doctor Strange 2 open to 180 million during COVID era, then 90 million opening for Cap 4 should be a big disappointment for Marvel. Also, the early word seems above average movie that even will make 70 to 80 more is a more realistic number."
No, that's a ridiculous way of looking at it, to be honest with you. It's like, this movie made almost $200 million. Oh, this one made 90. Oh, that's got to be considered a disappointment. Oh God, no. Don't do that. Any movie opening to $90 million, especially when you're talking about a movie where the main character you've known isn't there anymore. It's not Chris Evans anymore. This is a big, big roll of the dice for Marvel. And Marvel, listen, Marvel never once expected that, hey, it's a new Captain America movie, but it's not really Captain America. It's now a Sam Wilson movie. And we've totally changed the character, and it's a new actor in it. The guy who's been the star of these movies is not in it anymore, blah, blah, blah. Nobody at Marvel for a second thought this movie was going to open to $170 million or things of that ilk that were with established long-running characters who were already in those roles and doing these things. So no, it's beyond ridiculous. By the way, I don't think this movie opens to 80 or to 90. I don't think it opens to 90. I think it opens to less than that. But if it does open to 90, without its star, without its main character, going in a totally different direction with a new guy who's only been the sidekick up until this point and is now in the lead role, and this is his first time really leading it, if it makes 90, you got to be impressed. I'll be impressed. I don't think it's going to do it, but if it does, damn right you better be impressed. That's impressive. It's like saying, yeah, I mean, this one movie's open to $70 million, but Endgame opened almost 300 million, so you got to be disappointed. It's two totally different things. You got to evaluate it based on what it is. And what this is a character who had never been Captain America. The star of this franchise for decades is now gone. The main character for over a decade is now gone. And the guy who was the sidekick, it's now a Sam Wilson movie. You think there's any reality that anybody thought it'd be reasonable to think that's a movie that's going to make 150 million opening weekend? Don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. Now, it's all going to depend on whether the movie's good or not. Out of the 3 MCU movies opening this year, Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, and Captain America 4. Captain America 4, I think, is the least anticipated. I know it is for me. It's the least one I'm excited about. I'm definitely curious about it. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it. But I'm definitely far more excited for Thunderbolts and far more excited for Fantastic Four. So if this thing can make $90 million, don't fool yourself, dude. That's a huge win. And I have my doubts that they'll be able to do it. Anyway, All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, John, I'm sure Seth Rollins filmed a few scenes for Cap 4, but I didn't see him in any promotions for the movie. Any idea if he's still in the movie or is his role cut during the reshoot?
His role was cut during the reshoots.
I believe I read that too.
Yep, that's been made official. That Seth frickin' Rollins is not in the movie.
There was another person in it too that was cut, but I forgot. I'm not even going to speculate.
I think there's a lot of people who had small.
Might have been
parts.
another wrestler. Maybe Becky Lynch or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're probably because they did some significant reshoots, and they changed. Kevin Feige decided once he got his power back to change up a lot of what it was going to be. So it's not surprising. Honestly, listen, I like Seth Rollins, but he's not an actor, so I don't really care if he's been cut out of the movie. All right, what's next?
Okay, Kermit says, as a lifelong Eagles fan, it brings tears down my face watching how we dismembered the Chiefs, and now I've been alive to watch 2 Super Bowl wins for my team. I was a little surprised at how little movie spots we got through the whole game.
I don't know, man. We went down through a pretty long list.
That was a good amount.
I think there was more than you think. You know what I think it was? I think it just threw a lot of people off. I think some people had the perception that there weren't that many, because the new trend is to actually drop the spot online prior to Super Bowl. And so, like when the Megan 2.0 one played, I think a lot of people didn't register that as the new Super Bowl spot because they already dropped it a few days before that. But yeah, we went through this. There was like 6, 7 of them. There was still a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what's next?
Superman says, no Superman trailer. The marketing of Superman Super Bowl would have gone so hard, but I get it. Keep them wanting more. Did you see the short Guy Gardner ad for the Puppy Bowl? P.S. That Kendrick performance was electric. Everyone in the crowd was going crazy.
Yeah, I thought I was also surprised that there was no Superman spot during the Super Bowl. I love the Guy Gardner thing they did on social media, and the Kendrick Lamar performance was pretty fire. I mean, it thumped pretty good. And Samuel L. Jackson having a part in it was wonderful. All right, what's next?
Tron says, tracking for Snow White is currently at 63 to 70 million opening on a budget of 250. For context, The Little Mermaid had a 118 opening. That's not good, but not surprising. Not a Ziegler hater, but the trailers have been complete ass.
I disagree. I think the trailers have been pretty good. And I have my doubts that the movie's going to be any good, but I just call it as I see it. By the way, those $250 million, wrong. It's really closer to 210. So it's closer to 200 than it is to 250. Still an expensive movie, and it's still going to need to make a lot. I mean, I honestly think Snow White's going to have to get close to the $500 million mark in order to break even. And that's saying a lot. So anyway, 450, 500 million, it's going to be in there. But again, I am not somebody who's excited about this movie. So as somebody who has no dog in this, I got to say, I disagree with a bunch of people. I actually like the Snow White trailer. Although I don't love it because, again, to me, it's got kind of Snow White and the Huntsman vibes. And that concerns me. But I really do love the creative choice about the dwarves. I think they look great. Now, will they come off as great in the movie? Well, that I don't know. I mean, they may be cringy and horrible in the movie. I don't know. But as far as the trailer goes, I'm going to disagree with you. I'm a movie-going member. Movie trailers are supposed to appeal to movie-going members, and all I can tell you is that as a movie-going member, it appealed to me. So I still have my doubts whether the movie will be great or not, but I like the trailer.
I just want to confirm it was only Seth Rollins. It was only Seth Rollins. I was saying
no, I don't think you're wrong, though. I think there are several people who got cut out of the movie, but maybe just not several high notable people that were cut out.
Right.
All right, what's next?
Pacific McRim says, hello, team, and happy Monday. Starship is now on a loop at the office today because of that Thunderbolts trailer. I hope your coworkers are okay with that. So awesome. That has to be the Void, right? Don't know how that team beats the Void, but color me intrigued. Take care and enjoy the day.
Let me tell you something. I love the song selection of that trailer. It was such a weird out of left field choice for a song in it, and I loved it. Again, how does the Thunderbolts deal with something like the Void? I brought it up earlier in the show. The only thing I can really think of is there must be some kind of MacGuffin in the movie that they go after. Some kind of talisman, some kind of high piece of tech, something that will help them deal with it. Because clearly, Red Guardian can't go up and just punch the Void in the face. right? So it's got to be some kind of MacGuffin device that they're going to have to go out. At least that's my best theory.
It's got to be the Sentry, I think. You think he sacrificed?
But then what's the point of the Thunderbolts if it's just Sentry? Why are the Thunderbolts there? Why is it a Thunderbolts movie, right? It's got to be something that the Thunderbolts accomplish or have to do or have to get in order to allow Sentry to be able to do something about it, right?
Does Sentry make it out of this movie? I don't think so.
Yes, 100%.
You think so?
I think he does.
I think he dies.
Really?
Yeah, and it's
I think
because
he
of the
makes it.
void. It's just to get rid of that problem, that powerful, he's too powerful problem. It'll just get rid of it. I mean, I just wanted to see him on screen. I said to the chat.
Unless he's powered down because of the void being
He's
gone.
flying, though. He's flying with just a cape. You know what I mean?
I think he sticks around. I think he sticks around and finds a way, like he does in the comics, to control the void and keep the void contained. But
I see.
We'll see how they decide to do it. All right, what's next?
Gazi Q says, "Hi, John. I noticed in TV shows they have different directors or writers in some episodes of the same show. How does that work, and why does this happen?"
Well, okay, because I'm going to oversimplify this, but this will give you a general idea. In television shows, the main creative force is not the director; it's the writers, particularly the showrunner, who runs the writers' room, right? Traditionally. So, as they start putting this whole thing together, it will 95% of the time, you need individual directors working on individual episodes because one director can't do it all. So the writers are the ones who remain control. And then what happens in many shows, you get a writer's room and they kind of together with the showrunner plot the overall direction of the show where it's going. And then once they decide overall, okay, this has got to happen in this episode, this has got to happen in this episode, what will then often happen is that individuals in that writer's room will be given the responsibility of, okay, now that we've decided what's got to happen in this episode, you two script that one out. Now that we've decided what happens in the next episode, you three script that one out. Now that we know what's going to happen in episode 3, and we've decided as a writer room what's happening there, you script that one out. So that's why a lot of times you'll see, and then you get a different director directing each one, taking the vision of the writer's room and bringing it to life. In movies, it's different. In movies, the director is the main creative force. But in television shows, it's the writer's room, particularly the showrunner, that does it, and then they just bring in directors to bring their scripts to life for each individual episode. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, "Hey, John. Hey, John and crew. With the convo around Oscars and our collective short-term memory, would it be viable for theaters to do an Oscars week where they re-release the Best Picture movies so we can see them again? Would it help for movies like Dune 2?
AMC Theaters already does it.
Yeah, they do that.
It's called, what's it called? Their Oscar Showcase?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's called AMC Theaters. I think they still do it. Anyway, they had done it for years and years and years.
They did it this year, too.
Every year they do a weekend called the Oscar Showcase where they play all the Best Picture nominated films.
Right.
And some people go to them. That's why they do them. People buy tickets and go and get caught up on those. Like a lot of film fans go like, hey man, I never even heard of these two Best Picture nominated movies. And they go to, Oscar Showcase weekend and will buy a ticket to those movies and go watch those ones. It's not really going to give any help to Dune 2 because the people going to these Oscar weekends at AMC are not Academy voters. And voters have already cast their votes by the time these Oscar Showcase weekends happen. All right, what's next?
Anonymous says, hi guys, hope you're well. I had a question regarding the Thunderbolts trailer. At the end, if you notice the asterisk, it has only 5 legs, whilst in the previous trailer, it has 6. Well, that's some good detective work there. Do you think it's a mistake or could it mean something? I don't think anyone would notice that.
I think it's completely irrelevant.
I think it's just whoever was creating that title card.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I don't know if you're correct. I don't know if you're correct that one had 5 and one had 6. But even if you are, I don't think there's any meaning to it. Again, I don't know that as a fact. Maybe there is when we see the movie. But if I had to put $1 on it, my guess would be it's completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Okay, Sam Fisher says, what's the likelihood this Thunderbolts movie is actually Dark Avengers or West Coast Avengers or some other team from the comics and not the Thunderbolts?
I think next to 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much next
what's
to
the
0%.
Point? No one, audiences don't know those teams that well anyway, so just call it what it is.
And think about this. If it was, let's say the Marvel Cinematic Universe is real. Let's say we're people living in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Are they going to call themselves the Dark Avengers? No, they wouldn't. West Coast Avengers? That's a more feasible thing, but no, listen, to Marvel, the name Avengers is a very precious thing. They only come out with an actual Avengers movie every X number of years. They're not going to water down the Avengers name by just start slapping it. They're not going. That's why I've always said they're never going to put a team together that they call the Young Avengers. And I don't think we're going to have the Dark Avengers and the West Coast Avengers. They're not going to water down and dilute the name. So they could be called something else by the end of the movie other than Thunderbolts, but I really don't believe. Again, I have no factual knowledge of this. This is just me as a fan speculating. I don't believe it's either going to be Dark Avengers or West Coast Avengers or anything like that. All right, what's next?
Forbidden says, I agree. Thunderbolts is not Marvel Suicide Squad. Thunderbolts is grayer than that. Hell, sometimes they're straight up superheroes.
Again, it's much different. The Suicide Squad is a group of characters who, for the most part, are supposed to be villains, and they are forced against their will to perform for their government overlord, to do something, or they get killed and die. The Thunderbolts are completely different. They're completely different. And the motivations are completely different. The emotional underpinnings are completely different. It's a very, very different thing from Suicide Squad. I mean, listen, I get it. I get why people want to make that comparison. I do. I would just challenge you that when you really just look at the two groups, they're wildly, I'm not saying different in the terms of their power sets are different, which they obviously are. I'm talking about the whole reason why they exist is a completely different theme. So yeah, I don't see the comparison there. All right, what's next?
Last two tips. Jody G Money says, to Rob's questions or frustrations about interconnectedness, were any of these Thunderbolts villains or antagonists brought to replace versions of Kang? And it's the loss of the Kang connective tissue that makes these stories feel like islands.
None.
I don't think it would matter if it was Doom or Kang.
I don't think anybody watched this trailer and thought, where's Kang?
Yeah.
I mean, Kang was a failed character in the MCU, not in the comic books, but was a failed character in the MCU. Just never took, never worked. They mishandled the Kang character. Let's just call it what it is. Marvel mishandled the Kang character. And after two full TV series or two full TV seasons and a full movie, they realized it's not knee-jerk reaction. They gave it a plenty of time. They realized we mismanaged this. We need to pivot away. It just wasn't working. And again, I disagree with Rob on this. I do not feel this movie feels like an island. Again, like as Chris was pointing out, the trailer itself starts with a direct reference to the Avengers. It's literally talking about a question that Rob himself has raised a lot over the last couple of years, which is nobody is referencing what the status of the Avengers are. So what did this trailer do? Right out of the gate, the Avengers aren't coming. Right there, that tells us this massive cinematic universe-wide question that's been hovering. What is the status of the Avengers? There ain't the Avengers right now. The Avengers ain't coming. And I felt it's up to the movie to just be a good movie. You know what had no connectiveness? What was an island? Deadpool and Wolverine. Tell me how that movie worked out. Worked out pretty damn good. And it was pretty much an island. Yeah, it was kind of in the MCU, but it was really an island. And guess what? That was fine. Why? Because the movie was good. If you know what was also really tied into the MCU, like really tied into the MCU? Thor: Love and Thunder. Did that help it? You know what was really tied into the MCU? The Marvels. That was totally tied into the MCU. It tied into with Fury. It even tied into the Disney Plus series. It did all of that. Did that make it a good movie? Personally, I thought the Marvels was pretty okay. I thought it was, but it totally failed. And it was all connected. Being connected won't make this movie good or bad. Being good or bad will make this movie good or bad. Mm-hmm. And I personally did feel like it felt like it already had some tie-ins. Anyway. All right, what's next?
We got Anonymous. Hi, John and crew. Asked yesterday about Rings of Power because both Screen Rant and Forbes both reported season 2 viewership over its first 12 weeks of availability was down 6% from season 1, according to Illuminate 2024 streaming analytics.
Again, it's weighted, right? The viewership went up and up and up over the course of the season. More and more people, like a lot of people, did not check it out at first because, again, season 1 was such a low point. Season 1 was such a disappointment, but it went up and up and up and up. And that's ultimately why Amazon looked at it and went, green light season 3, and away they go. All right, what's next?
Okay, we got some members here. NN12 says, thanks to whoever dropped the gift memberships. I got mine before the show even started.
Yeah, who was that? Roberto?
Yeah, that
that
was
did
really
that.
cool.
A huge membership drop from Roberto there.
Yeah.
Thank you again for that, Roberto. That was incredibly generous of you, man.
We got Collins, who says, just in case. Oh, Roberto Borges gifted 20 memberships before the show started. Yeah, so it was 70 in all.
There was 70 in total.
Yeah, Saw Duel says, more likely to come out first, Ocean's 14 or Ocean's prequel with Robbie and Ryan G.
Ocean's 14. I don't even really believe the Ryan Gosling one is
Yeah.
going to happen. I mean, if it does, I'm interested in it, but it looks like there's real momentum right now on the Ocean's 14 one. So my guess, just a guess, my guess would be the Ocean's 14 one.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think his last movie would affect the Ryan like prequel coming out, the Fall Guy, and his performance? Like, if that were to come out, do you think Fall Guy? Because he's saying Ryan. Oh wait, Ryan G.
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. Well, he was in Fall Guy.
What is it? Sorry, I don't understand what you're asking.
So the performance of Fall Guy
Right.
was not great. Do you think that would like push Gosling led Ocean's film, back a little bit?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody in Hollywood looked at the performance of Fall Guy and said, oh, that's because Ryan Gosling was the star of it. I think the more logical argument is if Ryan Gosling wasn't the star of it,
Yeah.
it would have made less money.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think, I just don't, I've never been sold on the idea of an Ocean's prequel. First, then again, I'm never really sold on any prequel idea of almost anything. So no, I don't think Fall Guy has anything to do with it though.
All right. Amin says, so happy for Anora over the weekend. The film is now fully in the driving seat to win Best Picture. Let's see what happens with SAG, WGA, BAFTA. If we can't get Dune 2 win, the next best thing is honestly Anora.
I personally think the next best thing would be Conclave, personally, but I love Anora, and I couldn't be happier if Anora did get in there and win. Again, there's still some big award season things to still happen, but it does look like Anora might be now the front runner. All right, what's next?
Jacob says, hey guys, been watching since 2021, first time reaching out.
Thank you, man.
You guys have brought up the idea of intermissions before. How do you feel about the idea of theaters moving trailers to a designated intermission, taking into account for overall runtime? Only
Love
on
it.
movies that are very long that require an intermission.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, right? Like, I am a proponent of intermissions, but only for movies that are long enough to justify it.
Yeah.
I think at minimum, a movie should be 2.5 hours to have an intermission. Minimum. Really, maybe even a little bit longer than that. And I've talked on this channel many times about the massive advantages of having an intermission during a very, very long movie. Do I like the idea of playing trailers in that? Yeah, because you're going to have a lot of audiences still just sitting there in the theaters waiting for the movie to start back up again. Play some trailers in there. But the problem is, as Jonathan is alluding to, is that it would probably only be about 15% of movies that would be long enough to have an intermission. Like, I don't think a 90-minute... What was the movie that was just out again? Love Hurts, right?
Yeah,
The-
hour
the-
20 something.
The Ki Hu Kwan movie. That movie's like an 87-minute movie. That movie should not have an intermission.
Yeah.
Like, right? So it's just not enough movies that would have an intermission to make that a legitimate move. All right, what's next?
Next up, we've got King Daddy Goat, who says, hey, John and crew, congrats on your perfect Super Bowl prediction, John. I caught up on Paradise on Hulu over the weekend, and wow, I've been really intrigued by the story, and I've really enjoyed James Marsden's president portrayal. What's your guys' thoughts on the show? Thanks, and bring on the filthy.
I don't think Paradise right now is shrinking or Shogun or Last of Us level or anything like that, shrinking. I don't think it's on that level, but it's quite good. You would like it, Ray.
Yeah.
I think if you watched Paradise, it's got Sterling K. Brown in it. It's got James Marsden.
Okay.
He plays the president.
A
It's
young president.
Yeah, pretty
he's
fairly
not
young.
that young anymore.
Yeah, but young looking for
Yeah,
him.
young
70,
looking.
yeah,
He plays a very like John F. Kennedy kind of
Yeah,
president,
okay.
right?
very much so.
It's very good.
I do want to see first the paramedic one. The Pit. What is it called?
Oh, the Pit.
Pit.
It's a hospital one, not a
Yeah,
paramedic one.
yeah.
The Pit, I'm also
That's on my
really
list
enjoying
right now.
I am caught up on that.
But Paradise, fill me in. Why? What is it? What is it?
Nope.
No, you can't.
gonna
It's
say
one
a
of those
thing.
you have to. Okay.
You know, and I would say,
Is it like a Severance thing? You don't want to say anything.
it's more so than even Severance. Like Rob, I saw other people say it, and then Rob was the first one who I talked to who said, go into Paradise completely cold.
Okay.
Don't read anything about it. Don't look up anything about it. Just go in and start watching it. I think it's one you would like.
What's it on?
It's
Hulu.
on Hulu.
Oh, okay.
On Hulu.
Okay.
All right, guys, listen, and that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here, making our little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Hey guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like this video. It really helps the YouTube algorithm gods. And we really hope you guys will come back and join us again tomorrow for the next installment of this show. I want to thank the people in the room with me, Ray
See you
Ora,
guys tomorrow.
Jonathan Voico,
See you guys.
of course, to Chris Carr and Robert Meyer Burnett, both of whom will be back again tomorrow. My name's John Campea, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.